Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. This is a special board meeting of the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District, Friday, December 10th, 2021. It's just after 1 p.m. Peter, roll call.
Sure. Rickard?
Here.
Epstein?
Here.
Schroeder? Here. Perot?
Present.
Wait. Is Doug here?
Not yet. He won't be part of this roll call, but he is
But I'm
here.
not on
Okay,
this roll call.
sorry.
I'm here, but
Sorry.
not part of the roll call.
Okay. And Dornbrook here. So the
Great,
existing
thanks.
board.
Thanks. Eric, any announcements?
So this is the first use of the webinar. So this is a bit different from what people have become used to. You must use the raise your hand function for us to see you if you're an attendee. Panelists are able to mute and unmute themselves, but I have to unmute attendees. So you must use that function. There will be a slight delay because of some people remote and some being here physically. So give yourself a little pause before you start a sentence. I noticed Eric and Peter just talked over each other a little bit. There's just a technology pause. So just give a little gap in there before you start would be my recommendation. And everything will be done via roll call for votes.
Have I waited long enough? Is that enough?
That was great. No, that was good.
Okay, that's okay. Well, I'm going to be stepping aside here and turning over the meeting to our vice president to run the next parts of the agenda. But before I do, I just wanted to say congratulations to Doug for his first term on the board, and to John for his first multi-year term, and to Peter and Bob for your re-elections. Congratulations, well done. And I'm now going to turn this over to Bob.
Okay, well, then we have the big news, item 4, the seating of our new board member.
All
And
right, I will
Yes.
present that. So Eric kind of just summarized it. But there was an election on November 2nd, which you all know, and there are 4 either new or continuing board members. So let's see, Doug Mitter-Rotonda, he filled seat number 2. That was previously filled by an appointee. So Doug is going to fill the last 2 years of that seat's term. So that his term will end December 1st, 2023. The other 3 seats are seat number 3, seat number 4, and seat number 5. Those are filled by Bob Epstein, Peter Dornbrook, and John Schroeder. And their terms will end December 1st, 2025. So everyone has previously taken their oaths of office, so you're all sworn in and ready to go. And this, like Eric said, this marks the end of Eric Rickard's tenure after how many terms, Eric? 4 or 5?
Three, just three terms is all. Yeah.
Oh, it seemed like
Don't make it worse than it really is.
Since 2009, at least. So congratulations to everybody. Welcome to our board, and we'll proceed from here.
okay, thank you, Jess and Eric. I hope you'll stay with us for a couple of minutes longer, at least, if not the whole meeting. Are there corrections to the agenda or consent calendar? And I do have one request. I'd like to move item 10E to follow item 10A.
That seems appropriate.
Okay, are there any other corrections or changes to the consent calendar or agenda? Okay, if not, is there a motion to adopt the change to the agenda?
Dornbrook so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in, I guess roll call.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Perot.
Aye.
And Dornbrook aye.
And we have a new,
Okay, that's
for
right.
his first eye of his
Yeah,
career.
this is your first.
Don't be presumptuous. Don't be presumptuous that I'm going to say
Oh,
aye on this.
well, of his KMPUD career.
I want it to be an A now, just out of spite.
Mitter-Rotondo.
Aye.
Hope I
Okay.
pronounced that right.
Great.
Mitter-Rotonda.
Oh, the A, okay.
Okay, the next item 6, comments from the audience, an opportunity for anyone in the audience to make comments to the board for something that's not on the agenda. If you want to do that, please indicate by using the raise the hand function. It's the only way we can tell. We'll give you a few seconds to do that. Eric, I'm not seeing anybody.
I don't see any other.
Okay, then the next item is written comments from the public. And I didn't see any in the
None are
board
received.
packet. All right, so the next is to move on to the adoption of the consent calendar, which consists of the minutes from November 13th, the current consent for claims, the receivable shut-offs reports, reauthorizing the teleconference meetings, and approving the bad debt write-off. So since this is all in consent, there's no discussion. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Yeah, Dornbrook, so moved.
Okay, a second.
Yeah, second.
Okay, Peter, roll call.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder. Aye. Perot,
Aye.
Midratanda,
I,
Dornbrook, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, so there's no items brought forward separately, so we're now on to item 10, to elect a president for the board. So are there any nominations?
Okay, I thought you just changed the order and we are starting with Rickard. Oh, no.
Oh, that following item A, I'm sorry if that wasn't clear.
This is not open to the public yet, Howard. Yeah, sorry.
So then I'm confused. So what did we agree on changing the agenda?
We're doing,
It's
Item-
going between A and B.
Okay,
Yeah. so A, E, and then B.
okay,
Sorry if that wasn't clear, I apologize.
no problem.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd nominate Bob for president.
okay, are there other nominations?
Dornbrook, I'll second that.
Thank you, Peter. Is there any discussion? Should we call for, if elected, I gratefully look forward to serving. If there's no further discussion, then
Bob,
yeah.
can I ask you to maybe state your thoughts and your vision for the board for the next few years so that we can hear how you might want to lead us in the next couple of years?
Well, I'll be happy to improvise on that particular topic. What I really like in a board is the sense of teamwork and the willingness to openly discuss issues. So I really like it when we all work as one team, working with staff, respecting each other, and being very willing to challenge assumptions and have a good debate and just move forward on the policy. I feel that the amount that has been accomplished during Eric's tenure and others has been pretty remarkable, given all the distance we've gone. We're now in new challenges, particularly with fire, and how do we reduce our use of propane and other topics. But we're in an incredibly strong position thanks to the leadership that we've had from the past. I look over at Peter and admire the fact that he's offered 36 years of service on the board. And I think that's what really what I really like about Kirkwood is maintaining a sense of community. That's what really makes this fun for me. And my goal is to make it fun for everybody, but not shy away from issues, making sure we discuss them and reach a good answer and move forward as a team. So I said team at least 20 times. So I think that's my goal, is to provide leadership that makes us a strong team.
That answer your question, Doug?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
I have a question / comment or whatever. It's related to how to put agenda item to agenda, because the president has a key role in that function. And I've been frustrated on several occasions because things were not actually followed up. So I'm assuming the proper process would be a discussion at the item number at the bottom of the agenda, that any board members that want to bring
That's right, Bertrand. I would encourage you to bring it up under general discussion, and then we'll agendize it for discussion. And if you have some, yeah.
No, so I'm asking about agendizing agendas.
I know. It's the most meta of meta discussions.
So you want to get that, we could have that discussion.
I
Definitely.
think in the general discussion, you should bring it up and then we can agendize it. And if we need clarification, we should definitely do that.
The reason I'm bringing it now is because I think the president has a key role in that process. And I wanted to hear from you what your viewpoint on here and how consensual we need to be to get agenda item on the calendar.
Okay, I'll be happy to do that in the general discussion.
Okay.
I think we should keep to the current agenda at the moment.
Mhm.
Are there any other comments on the nomination? If not hearing any, Peter, can you do the roll call?
Sure. Schroeder,
Aye.
Dornbrook, aye. Perot,
Aye.
Midratanda,
Aye.
Epstein.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Okay. I appreciate all of your confidence in me, and I promise that I will do everything I can to make this all work well for all of us. I'd like to now move on to item 10E, Resolution 21-13, honoring Director Rickard. And in that regards, Eric, I'd like to read the proposed resolution. A resolution of the Board of Directors of Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District honoring Director Eric Rickard for years of service. Whereas Eric Rickard assumed office in December 2009 and served 3 four-year terms of the Board of Directors, most recently as President of the Board of Kirkwood Meadows, PUD, and whereas Director Rickard significantly contributed to the Out Valley project, beginning with the acquisition of the electrical operations from Mountain Utilities, continuing through planning, permitting, financing, construction, and commissioning. And whereas during his public service on the board, Director Rickard was active in changing the committee meeting structure to encourage community involvement. And whereas during Director Rickard's tenure as a board member for the district, he also served as chairman of the Planning Committee, most recently chairman of the Personnel Committee, and served on the Operations and Financial Committees. And whereas Director Rickard showed great determination, dedication, and commitment to the district, and participated in and contributed significantly to the affairs of the district in a consistent and fair manner. Now therefore be it resolved that Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District does hereby express deep appreciation to Eric Rickard for his many hours of public service to the people of Kirkwood, California.
You're here.
And while we discuss this, Eric, I just can't thank you enough for the willingness, even before the board, volunteering, working through all sorts of other areas, and just your kindness and fairness, and always making sure the community was involved. Just a steady hand I've greatly appreciated it, and we are going to miss you on this board.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate that very much.
So I'm see, are there any other comments before we vote on this resolution?
Have fun with those grandkids.
Oh, I am and will. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you much, Eric, and don't go too far, because I know personally I'd want to be able to tap on you for advice as issues come up over time. You got a wealth of institutional knowledge here and a good viewpoint on how the district's supposed to work. And so I'd really like that help in the future. And then thank you much. It's been a long run.
Yeah, it's been a good run, but I'm not going too far. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'd also just like to say thank you. I know I'm relatively new to all of this, and you welcomed me in and got me included in things. And I know I have big shoes to fill, so I appreciate the opportunity to be on the board. And thanks for all the time and effort you've put into getting me up to speed as much as you could. So thank you.
I look forward to following you, Doug, on the board.
I would like to thank Eric for his many years of services, which actually for the PUD, but also for the community, which is even more years than the 12 years he has served on that board. So Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Bertrand.
And on behalf of staff and myself in particular, I just want to say how much I appreciate our candid discussions and not being afraid to get mad at each other and then finish it off with a nice scotch and back. But you know, that honest and open communication has been huge, and you've helped temper my zeal in some cases. In some cases you were unsuccessful, but I appreciate the effort always.
I never realized you were mad at me, Eric.
No.
That's why you got the 3-year-old, Scott.
That's right.
So maybe I can give you a tutorial for that.
That's great. That's great. Well, I have
okay.
some things to say
Yeah.
maybe before you vote. I just,
Please go ahead.
yeah, as the resolution says, I came on board when the Mountain Utilities acquisition was first being discussed, and the topic of the Out Valley connection was a hot topic. And I had done some work just to see how far we could go with alternative sources of energy, and came to the conclusion that the connection was pretty critical. And 1 month after I joined the board, of course, the powerhouse burned down, which accelerated certain things. But that was the hot topic then, literally. But each of the 12 years has brought many other hot topics. I mean, great topics, fascinating topics. I've really enjoyed just learning how this aspect of a community runs, how it operates. And in Kirkwood, of course, our district is part of the glue that holds the community together. And I think it's well to remember that always, that is one of our unspoken roles. It just is. But I want to say that the reason that I was able to, and I think all the other board members have been able to, take on these challenges and be fascinated by them and learn from them and debate them and discuss them, all at the policy level, program level, planning level, strategic level, is because we have such a great staff, a great management team, who just attend to all the day-to-day matters in a way that allows the board members to do what we're supposed to do. And that's just invaluable. So thank you to Eric and all the management team, Michael Sharp before Eric, and the management team, and Jess, our wonderful board clerk, and all the staff for doing everything you do every day. I also want to just say that, I've just enjoyed and learned from all the board members I've served with, starting with Leo and Frank and Larry back in 2009, all the way through to the current board. I mean, I've learned so much from each of you, from your different perspectives. And that's what's been most important to me, is the learning, the sort of the intellectual challenge of understanding how we balance reliability and cost and environment and fairness and safety and so on. So thank you all, to all the board members. And I just want to give special thanks to the board members with whom I've served longest. It's Peter, your steady reliability, your steady loyalty to the district, and to Bob for your amazing creativity and innovations and willingness to bring those innovations to life. And I don't know if Standish is on, probably not, but to Standish for his terrific ability to just get to the heart of matters, just very economically, and not without some amount of humor along the way. So it's been great, and I really appreciate this resolution. I appreciated working with all of you. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. And with that, Peter, can we do the roll call?
Yeah, I would move that we adopt resolution 2113 honoring Director Rickard.
Okay, and I'll second that.
Okay, Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
I
Mitrotanda,
Aye.
Dornberg, aye. It's definitely unanimous.
Okay, great. So we'll now move on to the rest of the initial board action. As I read the bylaws, it's the responsibility of the president to propose officers as well as committee members, but it's the board's decision on who to elect for those purposes. So I'd first like to start out with the board officer nominations. And so I have a slate I'd like to recommend for consideration. And just as a visual,
Give me a sec.
Eric is going to bring it up.
Okay.
So for Vice President, I propose John. Secretary Peter, that seems to be indelibly part of your life, and I just can't imagine separating you from it. And Doug as treasurer, and Bertrand continuing his role as assistant secretary. So that would be my recommendation for board consideration. Is there any discussion?
I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay. Doug, Bertrand,
I'm opposed to it.
you're opposed to it? Okay.
I'm opposed to it. I think, so my proposal would be, if there can be competitive proposal, is that the treasury would be John, which is in line with his financial, I mean, anyway, well, we are not yet there. Peter as a secretary, Doug as an assistant secretary, as a new board member, and myself as a vice president.
Okay. Eric, from the rules of
Yeah, from Robert's
order,
Rules of
please,
Order.
please guide me on how we should.
Yeah, so.
We have two proposals. How
Yeah,
much
so
should
you
we
have
do?
two proposals. And there wasn't a motion or a second yet on either proposal, so it'd be appropriate to have a motion or a second on one of the proposals.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion now or later?
Normally you'll do discussion after the motion's been proposed and seconded.
Okay.
Okay. So is there a motion for either the first or second proposal?
Yeah, a motion to approve the, your proposal, the first proposal.
Okay. And I'll second that. Bertrand, I assume you want to propose yours.
Yes, I'm going to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a
So you-
second?
So you would make a motion as an amendment, which would be his slate. So move to
Okay.
amend with the slate you said, Bertrand.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Do you do that? Just make a motion, Bertrand, to
So
amend.
I make a motion to offer this second slate of officer. That works?
Yeah, that close enough. And if there's a
Okay.
second, then there'll be a discussion. If there's not a second, it'll die for lack of a second.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay.
So dies for lack of a second, then you vote on the original motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion?
Just a clarification that I think I'd remain as chair of the finance committee, so.
That's totally independent of treasurer.
Right, so I won't lose my ability to contribute there, I guess.
Right, right.
Good.
These are the officer titles.
Right.
And as distinct from the committees, which we'll come to next.
Okay, you want me to call a roll on that?
I think so.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
No.
Middleton,
Aye.
Nordberg, aye. It's 4-1.
Okay. That's item B. The next discussion is on the committee bylaws. Eric has indicated some proposed changes, which are in the packet. In just a quick overview, there's two changes in there. One is that we have historically had the personnel committee be handled as a special case, with the president always as chair of the committee, because the president does have the responsibility for the key interface with the general manager. We all do, but there's a direct line reporting structure there. And we've historically, if the immediate past president is still on the board, had that be it, and if not, go to the vice president. So one proposed change to the bylaws would be to just institutionalize what we've done for as long as I can remember, which is the president, past president or vice president, depending on who's still in office, would continue as that, the personnel committee. The second is that the way the bylaws had existed, the committees elect their own chair, but we've never actually operated that way. The board has elected, as part of the responsibility of assigning committees, has also selected the chairs. So the suggestions that Eric has made in there is to make the bylaws be consistent with how we've generally operated.
And the only other thing I would add is I did correct the ad hoc committee reference. It's really a temporary advisory committee is the turn of phrase for the Brown Act. So I did correct those as well. Since we were in there, I figured I might as well get it fixed.
Oh, good.
So you'll see that in the first section. That's just really, just so we're consistent with the Brown Act.
Okay, so open it up now for discussion on those changes.
So instead of calling it ad hoc, we're calling it advisory.
Temporary advisory committee is the Brown
Okay.
Act term.
Okay,
I left ad hoc in there, or ad hoc, just so people would be familiar with,
okay.
but the true name is temporary advisory committee.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Oh, so the comment I make, I support two of these changes. So the first one being that the president would be the chair of the personnel committee. That makes total sense. I also support the temporary advisory clarifications. So last point on who the chair is going to be, I actually think it would be a better way to do it like it's supposed to be, which is the planning committee decide on who is going to be the president. Actually, I like this democratic way of doing it instead of getting more concentrated power to the president. So I support the first two. I don't support the last one. I would like to see to change, I mean, to do it as it's written currently.
And just to
Okay.
be clear, the only two voting members of any committee are the board members. That is it.
Okay,
It's
that's
not.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's a
Just to be
discussion
clear.
that the two member can have, yeah.
Okay, I just want to clarify one clarifying question for you. The president only proposes the initial thing. It's the entire board approves it. So in some sense, the 5 board members are deciding who are the chairs of each committee. So I would ask, isn't it more efficient to just do it now rather than having the 2 members vote later and report back? I could see it working either way, but
That's
to me, it seems
an
more straightforward.
important clarification. So if that's the case, that's correct. I withdraw my objection.
Okay,
Yeah, it says right in here,
Yeah.
just for clarification. So
okay, it certainly would make things more efficient to work that way. Then you're okay with the Bertrand
Yes, I am.
changes as written? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, is there any further discussion, comments from the audience on this? I'll wait for a second, see if there's any hands.
And just as a clarification, then on section A there of the personnel committee, the past president has to be a member of the board still.
That's correct.
That's correct.
That is a part of that. That's clear. That's clear in all the language, not just the, like, because the red line doesn't state it, but it is clear in the language above it, though. I just want to make sure that that was clear in the intent.
yeah, and I would be happy to add that if for whatever reason one of the aforementioned officers is unable to serve, vice president shall replace them. Where did it go? Immediate past president of the board, if still then serving. I can add that phrase, Doug, right there on that
I
first
think that'd
sentence.
be a good idea.
Right there.
Yeah, Doug, thank you for pointing that out, because there are some places where prior board members serve on committees. And in this case, that's
Alright.
not what we're doing. So thank you for that correction.
Then I will motion to approve this with the slight text amendment that we just discussed there about excluding
Okay,
or requiring being a board member as a past president.
okay, is there a second?
Yeah, Dornbrook, I'll second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Can we do a roll call?
Sure. Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
So I'm sorry, I'm confused here again. Can you remove that thing? So the personnel committee is made with the board and And who? The past president of the board?
It's the current president and
Yeah,
the
that's-
immediate past president, if still elected to the board.
If still elected, okay.
Right. In this case, since Eric is no longer on the board, it would flow to the vice president.
Okay, so,
We have in the past rotated the presidents,
Yeah.
Right.
and I think it's a great idea.
It just provides, it's been, that's the way it's been since I've been here, and it just provides continuity from the immediate past president to the current president.
Bertrand, does that cover your question?
yeah, I think it would be simpler just to have the president and the vice president as a straight matter, actually, but I'm not objecting to that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, historically, we find it really helpful if the past president is still on the board to carry the continuity of what's been happening.
So is that an aye or a nay or an abstain?
Yes, so we're now voting.
It's going to be an aye.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, Mitrotanda,
Aye.
Dornberg, aye, it's unanimous.
Okay, so that's the bylaws. Then based on the change in the bylaws, let's now discuss the committee appointments. Eric very generously gave us a starting point, which was all the committee members were polled to get their preferences. And so so I'm going to propose a starting point for board discussion, but it's the entire board that has to decide. So I looked at this and I said, if we can give the number one to each person, that's a starting point, and I would make them chair. So for that purpose, I would then propose the following, that John would be chair of the Finance Committee. Peter would be chair of the Operations Committee, Doug chair of Planning Committee, and Peter chair of Communications, where there were no ones, but there were three twos. So I did that as a starting point for discussion, just for people to get their first choices. Bertrand, since you didn't indicate any preferences, I couldn't do anything with that. I then
Can I
went,
say something here?
yes, please, of course.
So the reason I didn't reply is because I thought this discussion must happen actually in the public. And in the past, actually last time, that's not what happened. And so I didn't want to allow some pre-assignment like you just did to happen before the committee and the discussion. So the minimum you should do here is to ask me what are my preferred chair instead of assuming I don't have any. I'm actually shocked by your proposal.
Okay, it's the president's responsibility to make the initial proposal.
Yeah, but how
So
could you make a proposal without asking me what I propose?
You
did ask you.
you were asked and you chose not to reply. That's how I interpret it. If I misinterpreted it,
You did.
I had no other information.
Is that what you call work as a team?
I would say the fact that you didn't participate was your own decision. I can't
No,
understand
it's
why you wouldn't.
because it's actually,
Please go ahead.
I'm waiting for you to ask me.
Okay, let me finish the structure and then we'll have a discussion. This is just the starting point. And I'm just taking my best effort to try to answer the questions. This isn't, the whole board has to approve it. So what I did next, and then we'll open it up, to get everybody's comments. I then looked at the two ties that existed, which is where Doug and Peter both had interests in the same things. So I thought that Doug's experience as an economist would work well in the Finance Committee, and then Peter in the Communications. Well, Peter was already in Communications. So if we move to where we are, there is my initial proposal open for discussion. is finance would be John as chair, Doug as a member. Operations would be Bob as a member, Peter as chair, although if you wanted to switch, Peter, I just figure you really know what you're doing and I'd rather learn from you, but
No, I'm comfortable.
Okay, but-
Sharing it again. I enjoy that.
all right. And then planning would be Bertrand and Doug. And then communications would be Peter and Bertrand. So we'll open up for discussion now. So Bertrand, please tell us your preferences.
So my preferences, since I'm asked now,
Mhm.
Planning is 1,
Okay.
finance is 2, operation is 3, and communication is 4.
Okay. So planning 1, finance 2, operations 3, and communications are 4. I get that right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so we have a starting point.
Well, I can just say that in terms of communications, I wouldn't want to chair that because I don't have the computer skills necessary. But I'm interested in participating on that committee. But I wouldn't feel comfortable chairing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say on finance, I'd like to have Doug on that committee just because he's got domain expertise that's different than mine.
Mhm.
More about rate studies and things like that. And that complements more just general finance and fundraising and such.
Right.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
No, I don't have any.
Okay.
So what does the final list look like?
Well, there's the first draft that I came up with, which is listed up there. And Peter, I wasn't sure how many people are coming, but in case that's a little small.
Yeah, I'm having trouble reading that.
I made hard copies. And as president, I have a responsibility to just start with the open draft. So it sounds like planning is, there's my initial proposal. There's a suggestion that Bertrand has made. Planning is the same either way. Operations is the same either way. So the change would be whether Doug and Bertrand switch between finance and communication, as I understand it. So Eric, what would you suggest we do next?
Someone should make this is your proposed slate, so you either can amend your slate and then have someone make a motion to approve it, which, I heard Peter say he wants to step off his chair, so. So then you can make I would say, assuming you want to change it. If you don't want to change it, you could just, this is what your proposal is, someone can move and second it, and then you vote, or you can change it based on what you've heard and say, here's my proposed slate. Someone can make a motion and second and be voted upon.
Okay, well, I still think, to the best of my knowledge, my original proposal, I think, provides the strongest matchup of skills. And I would propose that,
The one that's presented here.
the one that's presented here.
I would vote no on that if you want to know.
Yes, I understand.
And that,
But-
and this is
but
what
now-
you call working as a team.
Well, my question is, there's 5 votes here. Is there support? Does someone want to support the amendment of swapping the finance and communication members? As amendment, Eric, is that the right way to follow the rules of order?
You could do it. I mean, if you're gonna keep it the same, then I would wait for a motion to approve, or if there's no motion, then you would propose another one.
Okay,
That's how, and then so on and so forth.
okay, so is there a motion to approve the original?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Okay. And is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that, Dormer.
Okay, and now there's the question.
Now it
Then
can be discussion.
now there's discussion of whether there's a proposal to swap the finance and communications. Is there a second for that? Is that,
No,
no, what, just
No,
help
it's
me
just,
out.
now it's just discussion.
Now it's
on
just
the motion
discussion.
On the floor, which is
Okay.
as you proposed.
Okay,
If someone wants to make an amendment motion, they can do so.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think, go ahead, John. Or,
You can go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, I guess if I'm serving as treasurer, it would make sense to be on finance, but I do have a lot of interest in communications as well in terms of some of the things I think that are important the board should focus on. But I think in my role as treasurer, it would be good to be on finance, but that's just a thought. And I also think with the rate studies and stuff, I have a lot of interest in that. So that's one thing I think that would be interested in being on finance.
Yeah,
Like I said,
that's-
I have a lot of interest in communications as well.
Yeah, it would be difficult to be treasurer and not be on finance. How would we resolve? You said you were concerned about computer skills for communications. How could we resolve that?
Well, maybe one of the committee members I could work with, and work with Jess probably a lot in terms of, but, and maybe is Ann Oppenheimer on that committee?
Yes.
she is. And,
Okay, well, then I
and,
would be comfortable.
and Beth
Okay.
and Beth and
Then I'd
Sandy.
definitely be comfortable. So, yeah, I'm fine with that. Being the chair and
Mhm.
I'd have confidence that Aunt, because she's very professional when it comes to communications.
Sandy is remarkable.
So I have several problems here. So
Okay.
first Peter would be chair of two committees, which I don't think is proper. I mean, yes, it's legal, but it's actually doesn't leverage properly the energy of the various board member. So what I'm hearing is that Doug could be on the communication instead of me and take that chair. I could take the chair at planning, and then I would have, so we, if Doug is on finance because he thinks it's important, then that's it. So do we have an excess of so if we have 8 positions for 10 board members, not everyone has 2 assignments, correct?
Now, everybody has 2 assignments, and Peter has 2 chairs. If he wasn't comfortable with that and wanted to swap either operations or communications, he could tell us now. And, we'd adjust. But everybody has 2 committee assignments.
So as I said, if Doug moved to communication from planning, then someone else needs to move to planning to work with me.
Well, Doug's first choice was planning, so I'm trying to respect that.
Doug, your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to be on the planning committee in the sense that is definitely my first choice. So that would be my preference. I mean, that is my preference. That's my first preference, as I stated it months
Okay.
ago.
I don't see any
that's-
reason not to support first preferences.
And then we do have a lot of rate study cleanup to do. So there's quite a few things to review on, especially just amending the electric rate study that we approved last year. There's outstanding items there that I'd like Doug's help with.
So Peter, the question asks, are you okay being chair of 2, or would you prefer to swap chair with one of them?
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay. Is
Well,
there,
I'm confused. So what is the proposal now?
the proposal is the same as presented?
Well, this is a poor way to start as a team, I can tell you that.
I hope you're speaking to everybody.
I'm speaking to everybody, yeah.
Okay.
I'm amazed. So Peter has two chairs. My choice are not even indicated. You didn't have that courtesy to put, and all that because I thought that this should be discussed here, not managed by Eric with a K.
Eric didn't
I
manage
didn't
it.
manage anything.
I'll-
That's, I
I'll-
don't appreciate that false accusation.
Yeah, all he did was collect data like we do on anything else. So the board had a starting point.
Is
I had
there-
I had the responsibility to take the starting point and propose something which I thought would work in my best judgment. All 5 board members have discussed it. You've expressed your preferences. And we're ready for a vote. So I'll call the discussion closed. Peter, can you do the roll call? And we're voting on the
Sure,
original proposal.
sure. Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
No,
Midratanda,
Aye.
and Dornbrook, aye. It's 4-1.
Okay. We now move on to item F, finances. And Kelly, I assume you're up. And
am up.
Kelly, in the interest of time, you can assume everybody has read every digit. So you can ask for questions or draw our attention to any specific items.
Sure, that's great. I like that.
Okay.
Really, we can skip to the combined income statement on page 40 of your packet. Operating revenues for the month of October were up from plan by $41,000. Year to date, we are down from plan by about $90,000. Considering that, though, total operating for year to date is up from plan by about $51,000. So considering the fire and all of those things, I think that we are in a good spot to start the second quarter of the year.
We have a question. Oh, Frank, your hand went down. Did you mean to do that?
Yeah, that was an accident. Sorry.
Okay.
We are tracking your every move. I will ask for audience questions in a moment. What else do you want to draw attention to?
I mean, specifically, I put the notes in the annotated the notes on the financials. So really just, the high level combined income statement is, really all, it covers it all. So unless there are any other specific questions on October financials, I'm good.
Kel, maybe we should go over cash flow since we're going to be talking about the rollover.
Oh, yeah, I was going to go to cash flow. I just meant for income statements and those things. Okay, well, I'll move on then to, I also want to note the November preliminaries on page 54 of your packet. You can see operating revenues for November were down from plan by $54,000. And considering the warm November that we had, and that's kind of to be expected. You can see the residential was down from plan the most. So that's all I have on November preliminaries, unless there are any questions.
Let me see if there's any questions from the general audience on the financials or the November preliminary. And if not seeing any, we'll move on to cash flow.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, so cash flow for the month of November, total operating cash ended at 2.36 million, which you can see the recovery from the variance to budget from last month. As I stated, there was some timing on when payments were actually posted to the bank. And you can see that in December, I do have the Russ interest and principal. That does include the payoff of the B86 loan that will be coming up in the next section of the board. So you can see that even with paying that off, we're still projected to be better than budget in cash flow.
Okay, any questions on cash flow? If not, we'll move on to budget variance.
And there was a change to budget variances. There was previously the cost of diesel through the month of September, but our budget where the timing we had for our diesel costs came through in October. So we are actually under budget for diesel costs through October. And electric cost of purchase power through October has been updated. And those are the only changes on the budget variances.
Okay, are there any other questions for Kelly on item F, finances? If not, we'll roll over right into the rollover.
So as I stated, we have the RUSB 86 loan coming to maturity. The outstanding principal is just about $109,000. And as I stated, we do have budgeted to pay this off, and that is staff's recommendation. And also the recommendation from the finance committee as well.
John, do you have anything you want to add? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, paying these off at maturity, well, you know, it kind of hurts to pay off a 1.8% interest rate loan, you know, thinking back to what interest rates were when I bought my first house in like 1982, and it was probably 13%. But this keeps us as a good credit risk and allows us to continue to finance the various projects that we have to finance at the district. So I think that's why the finance committee feels good about endorsing this.
Okay, are there any board comments on this? Any comments from the audience? Raise your hand. Use the raise hand function if you have a question. And not seeing any, we call for we need a board vote to approve this. So I would move that we approve this loan payoff.
I'll go ahead. Why don't you second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Peter.
Sure. Epstein?
Aye.
Schroeder?
Aye.
Perot?
Aye.
Mitarotanda?
Aye.
Dornberg, aye.
Okay, we're ready to move on then to item H,
Just
performance
really
reporting.
quickly,
Oh,
Peter,
sorry.
that's okay. Peter, I'm going to need you to sign a form before you leave today for that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, it's
Okay,
just a
great.
second mortgage. You shouldn't worry about it.
And John's here too. I think he can sign as treasurer as well, right, Kel?
John's not treasurer.
I think
but
it
yeah.
says.
Oh, no. He's
He's not treasurer.
Never mind.
I was saying
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
sorry. Doug's here too.
But
though.
Doug is here.
I saw him this morning.
It's actually either secretary or president
Oh, okay.
that signs, so,
So it's
Okay,
Bob or Peter. Okay.
so Bob or Peter should sign.
sure,
Okay, we won't leave without seeing you.
great.
Okay, so moving on to performance reporting and aquifer levels, item H,
On page,
61.
thanks.
Okay, hi, everyone.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, Brandy.
Hi,
Is this your day off, Brandy?
it is.
We're going to have to do something about that.
That's okay. At least it's in the afternoon.
Okay,
So.
thank you for coming.
Of course, of course. For performance reporting for electric for November, we saw an increase in production, which is just sales or purchases off the grid. And we're at a 13% loss for the month. I will report that we have not made it to the backside yet since it's been not drivable and not skiable. I'm hoping for better news on that next month. Our year-to-date unidentified system losses are at 18%. This is above our goal, but this is the high loss a section of the year. We usually see a reduction in the winter when we have more sales. If we look at propane, we see the reversal in propane unmetered, which we see happening pretty often. We did not see quite the November sales that we had budgeted for, just because of how pleasant and mild it was. So we had less than projected sales. Our losses are just unmetered was negative 13%. We're at negative 3% for the year, which is about on track. We take a look at water. Water production was higher than normal. We saw a little bit more sales of water than expected in November. We did have snowmaking happening up at Timber Creek from our aquifers. And we're seeing a 14% unidentified loss for the month, 12% for the year. So that's about on track. And then lastly, you can see November had quite a lot of unmetered usage in wastewater, and that can be attributed to I&I from the October storms, followed by the melt off that we saw. So all the streams are running. And 56% is high. It is not the highest we've seen in November. We expect to see that come down through the cold months. We're at 24% for the year. Any questions on that before I touch on aquifer levels or occupancy?
Do you think there was any damage done to our wastewater lines that are creating infiltration because of the Forest Service, their fire break bulldozing that they
It
did?
could be.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
I'm a
we
little suspicious of
anticipate
that.
to do some more smoke testing in those particular areas, as well
Right.
as budgeting for capital projects to repair what may or may not be damaged on those lines.
Because I know they bulldozed over one of our mains right near my house.
Mhm.
And,
They built those over a lot of
Yeah.
mains and laterals, and
Right.
yeah, no, I think our smoke testing next year will be focused on that
Okay.
area. We were already scheduled to focus in KMA anyway. We'll just
Right.
revamp where we were going to focus to that particular area.
I mean, if these numbers persist, maybe we'll see next month. A
It'll
drop.
be interesting to see as we go on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, why don't we move to aquifer levels?
Okay, so I included the aquifer levels sheet in your packet just to show that our aquifer levels remain strong. We haven't seen any hits or drops in aquifer level. And then also, as requested, included in your packet is the days per month of residential occupancy. And you can see that in 2021, we're back to about average after March of this year. Things were high through people sheltering in place in Kirkwood and spending more time here, but we are approximately back to average as of earlier this year.
You have a hand up, Bob, from
It-
Howard.
For which?
From Howard, he has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he just put it up.
Oh, okay. Howard, I will unmute you, please.
Okay,
Provide your question.
I guess you don't have my video on, but anyway, one thing that's always bothered me about this, I mean, we get these numbers of aquifer levels, but it would be nice if there was a reference to something, because just in looking at numbers, it doesn't really mean anything. And it would be nice to see those levels would be relative to the, what are they relative to? I'm totally confused what those numbers mean. There's no explanation. There should be something like minimum level, minimum acceptable level. Usually you have a bottom of a pump. And then somewhere over that, you have a minimum acceptable operational level. So without some sort of a reference, the numbers are pretty meaningless to the public.
Yeah, Howard, I'm so used to looking at these that I know what they're, I know what they generally are. I see your point that looking at this by itself wouldn't tell you whether this is historically reasonable or not. I don't, Brandy, do you have any suggestions of what?
I have a lot of historical data. We could do that. We had talked about doing an aquifer study, which I'm not sure where that is, but in order to tell, a healthy range. But I could certainly put in reference levels from our historical usage.
Well, more important than that would be like, what is the level at which we're running into trouble? You have a bottom of the pump. Obviously, you can't pump any lower than that. But usually there's some minimum safe operating level over the bottom for each rated pump. And that's the number that we should be looking at. So, and the fact that those numbers mean a lot to Bob is nice, I suppose, but I think any member of the public deserves to have something to compare it to. It just doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
We do have a hydrology study included in the capital plan. Obviously, it was set aside for all the other things we were working on, but it is included. So that would provide the reference data.
No, I'm not looking for a hydrology study. I'm looking for some basic numbers to compare to. And those, you should know that for every well. You should know where the bottom of the well pump is. And then each pump typically is rated with a minimum submergence. So those are the numbers that should be there for it to be meaningful to anybody.
Okay, we'll follow up. We'll follow up on that. I appreciate the suggestion. Make it clear. I bet Peter has an idea.
Layperson to
Yeah.
to interpret.
Okay.
And we adjust our pumping to keep the numbers in line, especially with well number 2, and we have problems with if it gets low, then we have chemical issues, right?
Yeah.
Coliform issues.
Yeah.
Okay. The question is having the reporting be
Yeah.
no, whether
Come
it's
up with
a
different,
problem, it's good or
tactic,
whatever. Yeah.
Maybe Brandy and Eric can come up with something that would
Okay.
be more understandable.
Good. We understand the question. Okay. Brandy, back to you.
That is all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next item then is item I, hybrid board meetings, of which we're experiencing our
Which we're
first one.
experiencing right now. This is the way it functions. A video was sent to the board members of a test we had done. This is the results of that test. So we just basically, under consent, we reauthorize the remote teleconference meetings so we can have meetings this way. That way we get, way more participation from the public, which I think is great. There's a lot more people logged in than have ever sat in this building when we were 100% in person. So I think that's a huge positive for the district to get more participation. So, but this is the way the webinars function, the Zoom webinar program functions. And this is the only way which we can facilitate a hybrid meeting. So I would propose that the board consider just doing these hybrid meetings. The only thing we would ask is that the board comply with the same protocols that staff has to comply with, which is to fill out their attestation form. So board members are treated exactly the same as staff, which I know the 3 here have filled out their attestation form.
Right.
I guess the question I have is, how does that affect the quorum rules?
So as long as the state of emergency exists as declared by the governor or federal government, or could be a local government, as long as the state of emergency exists, we are allowed to have these hybrid meetings, which means someone can appear via Zoom, but they don't even have to be in the valley.
Okay. So
Or
there's
they
not
could
a
all be
requirement
here.
that 3 board members are.
That
in
3 board
person.
member in the valley thing goes away
Okay.
under the, but I would propose, even if we go back to, let's say the order is lifted, we should still probably run the meetings like this, so people that are not up in Kirkwood can still participate via Zoom, even if all 5 board members are here. It'd be a good way to continue on.
But my question is, then you still have to have at least 3 members.
We don't have to, as long as the state of emergency exists.
Okay, but once
And
that-
the board
once-
reauthorizes. So you have to reauthorize every month, and the state of emergency must
Oh, every
exist.
month.
And then we don't have to worry about the 3 board members in the service area.
How about allowing the public in?
That's the next one on the
Okay.
reopening the
Okay.
CSB.
So this first step is just to recognize the way we're currently structured. We would do this for as long as the emergency order is in effect. And each month we would, as a standard consent, authorize continuing it for another month. And board members can either be physically in this building or anywhere they want to in the world without requiring the public to attend in their
Right,
space.
provided they complete the attestation form.
Yeah.
Just like staff does.
And the attestation here just states your vaccination status.
Or you can decline to state.
Right.
You just have to wear a mask if you decline to state.
And I think this is much easier to participate in than the old watching it on the video. I mean, this is a much higher quality, much easier to manage. And then we don't have we used to have an 800 number that people would call into if they wanted to talk. So this is, I
In a
find this
matter
a
of 2
much,
years, technology has really
a
done
much
some
better
amazing
upgrade.
things.
Yeah. So is there any discussion on this requested action to make this the standard way of operating for as long as the emergency order is in effect? And possibly longer, but that's what we're going for here.
Yeah, I think it allows for the largest participation possible.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, Doug, Bertrand, Peter, any additional comments?
Yeah. First, I'm surprised that this is already implemented. So I thought because of we were going to discuss how to do that to be for the next time. So I find it interesting that we actually do it before we approved it. That's number one. Number two, I find interesting that 3 board members are aware. I don't know if Doug was aware that he could come, but I was not. I just want to ask the other board member, how did you know that you could come to the board meeting, to the CSB meeting today?
Well, I asked 3 months ago and they said I could attend. And so I've been coming for the last, this is my 3rd meeting.
Yeah, but that because you up to now you are alone.
That's true. It's been lonely up till now.
Yeah. So now we have Peter and John that were informed that could come to the CSB meeting. And I wonder why, if Doug has been informed as well, and why I have not been informed.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who I was talking to, and it kind of came up casually over the last couple of days. I mean, there wasn't any email or announcement or anything like that. It was, I spoke to somebody up here, I don't remember who, within the last couple of days, and they said, oh, I think Bob is going to sit in the conference room. And I said, well, I might do that too. So that's kind of how.
And there was a test, we did a test, was a week ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was all posted on the internet.
Yeah, I got the test, but as I said, since we are discussing should we do it this way, I'm finding it interesting that it's already running now.
Okay, well, Doug, do you want to respond to the question?
Yeah, I don't know if I think it was on, I remember seeing the test and I don't think I even thought about this just because my own personal matter is I'm not going to come in until my family is vaccinated, until everyone can be vaccinated. So I haven't even really thought about this other than watching the video. So I never pursued it because it wouldn't be something that I would have considered, but I don't think it was clear one way or another how this would have played out. And I think Bertrand's correct in that. I'm trying to think back. I don't think it was clear to me one way or another whether it would have been possible, but again, I didn't really pursue it. So do you think that there maybe could have been a better communication, maybe one way or another, on how this was to get organized for who could come in person versus not today. So.
How I found out, now I recall, I did my oath of office with Jessica yesterday, and that's where it was like, oh, well, Bob's coming to the conference room. Are you gonna come by the conference room? And I thought, oh, maybe I will. So that's how I found out.
Okay. In response to the first question, we experimented with this Zoom webinars for the community fire safety. One, found that it worked well. At the last board meeting, we discussed what software we would use to set this up. So it's been tested, and this is our first live test. And so now it's a proposal. Now that we have some experience with it, the proposal is, should we continue?
And this was our first live test, as I stated when I sent out the.
Yeah.
As I would be testing at this
Right.
meeting.
And so far, I'm very happy with how it works.
Seems to be working well.
So the other comment I would make is, so currently we are still under a state emergency, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so that is up to now, we can do that. But once that is not the case, that once the state is no longer under emergency, then the rules that prevent some exception to the, I don't know if it's Brown Act or other public office statute, but that say that we can, for example, that at least 3 members need to be present, board members, but also if anyone watch or participate from a remote place, that place need to be open to the public.
That is my understanding as well. Eric, do you want to?
Yes, so.
So I just want to clarify for Doug that once the emergency is no longer in effect, if you want to be still playing remote, there is only 2 solutions. Is first, the PUD could issue another emergency specific to his situation. I don't know. And number 2 is you need to open your place so the public can attend at your place. It's not ideal for COVID.
Right,
so-
which is why
so
I would hope we would reauthorize as on the consent agenda every month.
Yeah, for as long as the
Yes.
governor's emergency order is in effect, we can
Yeah,
do
so
this. Once that's over, then there's a complication.
Yeah, so just to be
Right,
clear.
and I hope
we
it doesn't
can't-
turn it over. Sorry.
Right,
Yeah,
so we
right.
can't declare our own state of emergency independent of the state or federal or regional government. We have to tag on to theirs.
So that means
Hold on, I'll finish, please. Thank you. So, and then with 3 people, they only have to be in the service area. They don't have to be in the building. They have to be in the Kirkwood service area. So, but they would, as you are absolutely correct, they would have to open wherever they are to the public, should the public want to attend that remote site, whether it's in the valley or whether it's Bob in India calling in, he would have to post it there. So, but
Yeah,
we
so-
could have 2 members. So,
Yeah, I would like to wrap up this discussion. So Doug, I'd be happy to offer you my driveway. If and when we'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. Hopefully it won't be anytime soon, but if not, we could set you up in my driveway. And if someone else wanted to watch you, they could do it from 6 to 10 feet away.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'd like to now just ask for a vote for this, a motion to for this, the motion is that we will continue to use this hybrid model as authorized by resolution 2112. And we'll add the continuing statement to the consent calendar.
Norberg, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay, John seconds. Okay, roll call, Pete.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
I
Minute Rotunda,
I,
Norberg, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, good. Thanks, everybody. So now the companion issue, item J, is the CSB building. And Eric, do you want to update us?
yeah,
on
so
that
personnel
status?
met and John can definitely take the lead or chime in it whichever way you want, but
Yeah, I think what we arrived at was to put the CSB building in the same boat with the board meetings, meaning if we're going to open up board meetings, then we should open up the CSB, right?
Right. So, yeah, I think that was basically when the board goes back to meeting full in person, then the CSB should open was the personnel committee's recommendation,
But not with hybrid,
not with hybrid.
just for clarification.
Yeah. No, good question, Peter. At the end, I mean, Eric's dropped off, but I think that the comment was that staff should be treated the same as board members, and when board members are ready to reopen, then staff should reopen as well.
Yeah, and I think both populations have people that, more concerned than others, right?
Oh,
Like if
sure,
you got little
sure.
kids and they can't be vaccinated, it's a much bigger concern.
I think we're all under a lot of stress. We shouldn't add to it by putting pressure on anybody
Right.
to,
And with the new variants and.
right. So I strongly agree that should do what makes people the most comfortable.
So what do you agree actually?
That we would continue to keep this building closed until a point in time when we would have the public attend these meetings, but we wouldn't do it before staff. Is that, Eric? I don't know. That may not have been any clearer. Why don't you state it?
Once we stop doing the teleconference and the board has to meet fully in person here, under the old rules, is when the CSB would open. That was the personnel committee's
Okay.
recommendation.
So for going further, we're going to keep using the doorbell,
Correct. Yeah.
just to bring it
But
down
now-
to a
but-
mundane level.
Right.
Yep.
Ring the doorbell. Do you need a motion on that?
I think Eric would like a motion.
Well, actually, let me ask a few questions here.
Okay.
So you are saying that, can I see the motion on the screen if that's not too complicated?
It's the requested action on the screen, right?
There's no staff report with this. This was reporting out of personnel. There's no
We're
staff
we're
report.
writing it on the fly.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So.
Sorry about that.
So most counties, I mean, I'm not aware actually of a county or public building that's still closed to the public at this stage. So that's number one. Number two, if I understand correctly, the staff is organizing a party in the CSB building today. And if that's closed, I just wonder how is that going to happen?
So the annual staff and board party is being held in the fire bay with the doors open.
Yeah, that's part of the CSB building, you know?
That's a long job.
Yeah, really.
It is part of it, but everyone who's participating is a
They're
member of staff.
participating
or-
by choice versus being forced.
Yeah, so
There's a
it's not
difference.
it's not a
No one's required
requirement.
to attend
to attend.
the holiday party.
Yeah. Again, so I find it interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm opposed to the keeping that CSB building. I understand masking requirement 100%. I think this is the exception in the land nowadays. Public offices are open, cities and district and alpine counties and Amador counties. And somehow here with a very low traffic, we cannot open the CSB building and still requiring masks to be worn. I just don't understand that rationale.
Okay, well, that's the recommend. This is out of respect for staff, out of respect for the board members, and it's the recommendation of the personnel committee.
Great.
So is there any other?
It's also,
Discussion.
there's just not a lot of traffic anyway. And we're making, when you look at a Santa Clara County building or something like that, there's a lot of activity there. And here we just don't have very much activity. So it doesn't seem like it has that much of an impact.
Okay. In the interest of
To me, that's an
time,
argument to keep it open, to open it actually, since
Okay.
there is so little traffic.
I understand. In the interest of time on these issues, I
Right.
keep moving. We've had a discussion. There's a motion made to keep the building closed until the board is meeting in person. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
Dornbrook? Okay.
all right, roll call, please.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
No,
Inderatanda,
Aye.
and Dornbrook, aye.
Okay, and it wouldn't be a board meeting without snow removal.
This one
So I'm
should- this one-
delighted to say that there
I'm
is. a-
hoping this one shall be relatively easy.
Okay, so
and
we're now on item K, Sun Meadows 2 snow
and
removal.
straightforward. Fingers crossed. So we've been working with Sun Meadows 1 and 2 about their snow removal. Sun Meadows has gone back and forth. They wanted to reduce their snow removal area. And they gave us a revised exhibit for what they wanted. As of yesterday, they want to go back to the old model. They want to go back to the original. So we spent months on that and now we're back to where we started. So that's where we are. So there is no change for Sun Meadows 1, provided they want to provide a new exhibit for that. So we're waiting on that from them. That'll reflect the old, but it'd be a little more accurate than the old exhibit, which is bad. On Sun Meadows 2, basically what we discovered is there's a ramp, a snow ramp, and that snow ramp, there's 2 snow ramps in the greater base camp area. One's on the west side, one's on the east side. The one on the east side takes 100% base camp snow and that's it. The one on the west side takes Sun Meadows 1 snow, Sun Meadows 2 snow, and base camp snow. Right now, the landmark is split such that Sun Meadows 2 has half of the ramp and base camp has half of the ramp. Ergo, Sun Meadows 1 hasn't been paying for their portion of the ramp. So the suggestion from staff, and we've talked, and I was hoping to see Karen on, but she is, or Lisa Martin on, but she is not here. But the tentative agreement reached at operations committee, and Peter was there through the whole thing, was
It's
that we
complex.
would create a new landmark just for the ramp, the west ramp. And next year, so that's the first thing we would do. We would take that time this year, we would calculate it for this snow removal year, divide by 3 and add those minutes to their percentage calculation for next year. But for this year, we would reduce Sun Meadows 2 contract to be only their paved area, not the ramped area. It just is an acknowledgement that they should not be bearing the burden of Sun Meadows 1 portion of the ramp. And so that's the recommendation, but since the board set the pricing, I wanted to bring that back.
Okay, and the HOAs would support this.
Lisa Martin is on board with it. This is basically, and Peter, you feel free to chime in, but this is what we talked about for an hour and came to consensus between Lisa, Peter, myself.
And Lisa's the president of Sun Meadows
2. That is correct.
The HOA president.
Yes.
It seems like a reasonable solution to a very complicated problem that's been going on for years. And
Yeah, I looked at it and it's a really small area with a lot of shared access for both
definitely,
vehicle access and for snow removal
and snow storage.
Yeah,
It's almost bigger than the removal.
yeah. So unlike if you look at like in East Meadows where everything past a certain landmark is all East Meadows,
Right.
it's really pretty easy and it's a
Right.
large area. I can see why this sort of adjustment would have to happen to get this one right.
And it'll just be this is basically a 1-year adjustment to see what happens with the time on the ramp, and then we would correct the percentages. It is our fervent hope, and I know it's Lisa Martin and Vera, I forget her last name, she just changed last names, but fervent hope that Sun Meadows 1, 2, and then Sun Meadows 3/4 all come into some sort of agreement with one contract, and they're working on that behind the scenes.
That would
So
be preferable.
that would be great for next year. It would really simplify this.
Yeah.
But for now, this is what we have because we have 3 individual contracts, and this is where Sun Meadows 2 and staff and Peter, we all ended up.
And then make it even more complicated if we put in a proposed EV charging station by that island.
Oh, by the
That's
island.
really gonna make things complicated.
Yes, it would.
Okay, so you're suggesting all items 1, 2, and 3 be
Correct.
implemented, and I assume you're going to put in this landmark before the storm?
It's already, the landmark is in,
Oh, okay,
ready to go, ready to publish.
Yeah.
I haven't pulled the trigger for a report server to do that, but I did build it in anticipation
okay,
with a unanimous recommendation from operations for this.
great. Peter, you have anything you want to add then?
No, I would recommend, the operations committee recommends going along with this proposal.
Okay, is there other board discussion?
I'll just say thank you for taking this on because I know it's not like how you might want to have spent time to do things, but I think it's important to, when our community brings concerns to us and we find things that need to be fixed, I think it's important that we're responsive and do that. And I think we were able to turn this around relatively quickly because Lisa presented at the last board meeting. And I think I applaud the staff for taking action on this and appreciate the time spent on it. So I will motion to move this forward as proposed with all 3 actions.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any other comment? Okay, Peter, roll call, please.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
Aye.
Mitrotanda,
Aye.
Dormer, aye.
And I just want the record to show this is the first time in my lifetime that we had a snow removal discussion that took 5 minutes or less.
And my lifetime.
And your lifetime too. Good job. Okay, we'll now move on to item L, electric system study increased scope on page 68. And vacationing, Brandy, is going to cover this.
It is. So we had Cross Canyon Engineering provide us a proposal to do an assessment of the electric system to talk about what improvements we needed to do for EV charging. We went back to them and asked for a 5-year capital plan improvement. So at the last meeting, I believe it was the last meeting, we approved the previous scope of work, which was $40,000. The increase in scope in this one is that they will look at our system and include a recommendation on a 5-year capital plan, improvements that we can do to improve system losses or reduce system losses. So we're talking about things like direct bury cable, high voltage and secondaries that could be replaced, old or oversized transformers that need to be replaced, switches and things like that. So this proposal is a $6,000 increase from the previously approved proposal, and staff recommends that we approve this.
Okay, I assume operations.
This came out of planning.
Oh, this came out of plan. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Bertrand, yeah.
Yeah, I totally support this, both the initial part and this other. We are concerned about losses, and we had the opportunity to actually fairly modest cost to have an assessment of the low hanging fruit to reduce our losses. I think this is personally, and the planning committee strongly recommend to approve this project.
Okay, great. Any other board comment?
I would hope that with the new infrastructure bill, that maybe we could get reimbursed for some of this down the road.
Well, I'm not sure for reimbursement, but don't worry, if there is any money that there is so many projects that we could use it on it. So I'm not concerned on that initial 46,000.
No, but I would recommend that we follow up on that over time, keep track of this, because that's one of the proponents of the infrastructure bill is increasing EV charging. There's a lot of money set aside there, so maybe we could end up getting some reimbursement down the road. Maybe not. I don't know.
Okay.
We have a hand up, Bob.
Yes.
Howard.
Well, I mean in terms of.
I have a hand up.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so comments from the public. Howard?
Yeah, thank you. So actually, I think having the planning done, and the planning is usually pretty small expenditure compared to the design and whatever construction you're going to do. So that's where we should be looking to get, reimbursement funds. I think we're wasting money every day if the system has places where it can be improved. But by all means, if we have a plan in place, we should be looking for public funds to then go ahead and do the implementation, both for setting up EV charging and also for upgrading our grid. I think there's grid upgrade contemplated in all that funding too.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the proposal is to support the increase in scope.
I can move to actually adopt this proposal.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, good. Roll call vote, please.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
Aye.
Hidratanda,
Aye.
Dornberg, aye. It's unanimous.
Okay, we're now to item M. We are right on schedule. The mandatory solid waste and SB 1383.
So
Chris.
this one caught us a little off guard. Cal Recycle reached out to us to want to talk about solid waste and our compliance with SB 1383 and our, were we going to be applying for exemptions and or waivers? So we had a very good phone call with Cal Recycle. They were very, very helpful. I want to compliment their staff. They were just absolutely wonderful to work with, great people, and walked us through the steps much more clearly than the website does. So it was very helpful to have them. So basically there are 11 requirements under 1383 that are now codified, which are referenced in the packet. All of them are onerous on us as a tiny little provider. So they recommended we apply for a waiver. So we had to give them a little education. We sit in 3 counties. El Dorado County is not considered a rural county, so they are not eligible for the rural county waiver. So that really just tosses it out for us. Even though we don't currently collect any solid waste from El Dorado County, when that gets built, we will probably be dealing with that. So that really tosses that out. And the rural county waivers every waiver is good for 5 years or exemption. Rural county waiver will not be renewable. So the next one we look at is the population waiver. And so we're only eligible for census tracts with a population of less than 75 people per square mile. Our El Dorado County census tract is 0.58 persons per square mile, whereas our Alpine is 28 and our Amador is 54. So we qualify in all 3 census tracts for the population waiver. This is renewable.
And the census tract means they actually reported in the census. It's
and
it's
it's
not how many
updated
people are here on a
annually
Bluebird Day.
by the California California Department of Finance
Right.
updates it annually. And Cal Recycle has a spreadsheet on their website that I used while I was talking to them. We were on a Zoom call and they were actually just walked me through, where are you at? Look at the census tract, pull the maps. So we qualify for the population waiver. The elevation waiver does not waive all the requirements. So there's a lot of reporting requirements that we would still have to comply with, and composting requirements, and a few others providing 3 different types of bins, colored bins, and it's very onerous, especially for optional service. What was the interesting discussion out of all this, and I'm sure this is all fascinating for everyone, but what was most interesting to me from Cal Recycle, they told us that if we made this an enterprise fund, we would have to do curbside pickup.
Would we have to have curbs?
That's a question I did not ask, but we would have to do curbside pickup, which is obviously, we're talking millions of dollars of investment. We'd have to do that.
I
So
thought it was if we made it mandatory.
That's
if we make it
What if it's
mandatory,
voluntary.
correct. We don't have to do curbside pickup. That's
Right.
where I was getting to.
We
So
could get the whole community in if they volunteered.
that's what we have right
That's
now,
what we have
except
now.
for
Right.
Vail.
Right.
So I know we had in the goals and objectives, and we were targeting to bring this back to the board as a mandatory solid waste ordinance. I strongly recommend that we set aside that idea until such time as it's not so costly and onerous on the district. And I also recommend that we apply for the population waiver from Cal Recycle.
It sounds like we dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Eric.
That's very good
Yep.
information.
Good. Anybody want to spend millions or save money?
Well, it's not only
Yeah.
spend millions, but when I first bought my house here 13 years ago, I thought, what do you mean you don't pick up my trash? And I thought about these bears going driveway to driveway,
That's a good point too.
just tearing open trash bins, or
Yeah.
we'd have to have some ironclad trash bins.
So we
Okay.
used to have more trash bins scattered throughout the valley, actually,
Now we're smarter.
and that was,
Yeah. Okay.
it was pretty unesthetic.
Doug Bertrand, do you have any comments you want to add to this?
Certainly need to revise this ordinance because there are still issues that need to be solved, and especially for the fair share of having distributed beams through the valley and who is paying for that cost. So, but that's a different topic for the.
Yeah, I agreed.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we're just instructing Eric not to pursue a mandatory service as a solution to the existing problem.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Okay,
I think on floor has her hand up.
okay, great. On floor. Please unmute.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
I agree that having these mandatory requirements doesn't seem to make sense for a small community, but I do wonder if it's worth looking further at the mandatory requirements and seeing if there's ways that we can comply and or should be complying to be up to date with California standards. That would be beneficial to the community and do some of them on a voluntary basis if they make sense.
Okay, I mean, that would be dealing with things like, avoiding the methane emissions by collecting green waste, et cetera. And a lot of that happens at Vail, obviously. So
Yeah.
it's a good point.
Who's not a customer. We would have to, one of the
Yeah.
things in there is we have to repurpose 25% of the food waste to give to low income residents of our community.
Yeah, if I understand the observation correctly, is to say, are there things we can do in the spirit of reducing emissions and waste?
Yes, exactly. And clearly there may be things that just don't make any sense. Although there are low income people in our community that live in employee housing that could possibly benefit from that food. So just looking at these with a finer tooth comb to see what things we could feasibly do and might make sense for us as we continue moving into the future and improving our services. That's
Okay, thank you for the comment. Are there any other comments, Eric? Seeing none. So you have the board's recommendation. Do you want it as a vote? Okay. So there's a motion that the board apply for a population waiver and cease researching us and cease the efforts to provide solid waste as a mandatory service. So I'll move that.
And to go through what options there are to see what makes sense for us to voluntarily commit to if it makes sense.
I think that would be a good thing if we want to do that, put that on next year's goals and objectives.
Yeah.
I don't have time.
I think that would come at a later point. So we're capturing that note, but it's not part of.
That's fine. As long as it's captured.
Yeah, it's not part of this agenda item.
That's fine.
It's
As
not
long as
that we
it's
will,
captured.
it's not that we will ignore it. It's just not part of this agenda item.
That's fine.
Okay, great. Roll call, Peter.
Sure. Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
Aye.
Inderatanda.
Aye.
Nordberg, aye.
Okay, good. Thank you. Now, page 94, an update on how we're doing on the enclosures for propane and electric meters.
I will give just an update. So this update was as of Sunday in your packet. We've had a little movement since then. So we have a couple of classes. On November 15th, final notices were sent out to 39 residential and 2 commercial customers. Of those, all of them came back with agreements. We have now gotten 97 customers that are built to standard or were originally low risk, so they have a later deadline. 8 customers did not get the original notification back in June, so those have delayed deadlines. We now have 114 agreements from the residential customers. For re-inspections, we're down to 9 re-inspections outstanding. And 9 customers have installed protection that doesn't meet the standard. So we have 9 customers who are either in the second notice or final notice category at this point. Commercial and condominiums, All of the customers have either complied, have built them to standard, have later deadlines, or have signed the agreements. So for commercial, we don't have any outstanding at this point that are on second or final notice. And this work continues. I'm imagining that we will wind this down for the winter within the next few weeks. And then we will have a lot of customers on either a low risk, so they have to do something within 30 months, or they've signed the agreement. So we will be periodically sending out reminders every 6 months saying, this was your rating, here's the standard, here's the deadline, so that the rest of the people can do improvements either this coming summer or the following summer.
Okay, any questions on this update?
So did I
Response?
understand correctly that you have 9 people that are scheduled for shutdown?
No, we currently have 5 people on the final notice, which is the 15-day until shut off notice, and
Yes.
4 people on the second notice, which is a 30-day notice. So we have 9 total that are in one of those 2 categories.
Okay, that's what okay.
And the remedy is to make the improvements quite soon or sign the waiver?
Correct.
Okay. And when they sign the waiver, then they have an extended period to get it done?
Correct.
They do at least 12 months, but depending on their original rating, it could be up to 24 months.
Okay.
So are there any in the risk category, high risk category?
There are no more commercial high risk. We got the last agreements in on those. I believe that the only residential ones left are medium risk that are outstanding.
So I personally, I mean, actually, I had voted against that ordinance, not because I'm against safety and an improvement, but I thought there was language that was problematic into that ordinance. And certainly, actually, in the language of the ordinance, we actually have threatened to not only shut off the utility, but the water as well. And also, there is some language on curb stop where basically people have to, if there is no curb stop existing, the onus is put on the resident to actually find a contractor to work on the infrastructure of the PUD, so under inspection of the PUD, which are also opposed. And so bottom line is, I think this is not a good way to generate community spirit here, is by kicking off people during the winter. So I'm against this shut off, and I wanted to express that.
Okay, are there other comments?
I mean,
Okay,
I would just say, Bob, sorry, I just want to say, I mean, I generally agree with Bertrand that I don't like the idea of shutting off our customers, but I mean, is there any reason that they won't be able to sign these waivers in time to, if that, because, you know, assuming that they can't get the installation done, is there any reason they wouldn't be able to sign these waivers? That are we doing everything we can to help them sign these waivers, or take some remedy so it's not shut off, I guess, is my only question.
Yes, I mean, Brandy's gone so far as to go to some people's house and knock on the door to provide them a copy of the waiver because they couldn't print it and then they signed it right there. So Brandy's gone well above and beyond in doing that. And this started back in June. So, you know, it'd be a misnomer to think that people haven't had enough time.
Right. Well, then I will just say then, you know, Brandy, I thank you for the time and effort going above and beyond to help this, because I don't think anyone on the board would want to see anyone shut off here, and it's been a long process. So thank you for the time and effort that you all have done to take action on this.
Yes, and I'd like to reinforce that as well. I mean, this is a lot of work, and we've been through a lot to get to this point. So we're we're in a much better place than we were 6 months ago, and none of it has been particularly easy or the most fun. So I appreciate how far we've come, and I want to make sure that the board expresses full support to take this to conclusion. That's how I feel, and I'm sure all the customers who have already complied would agree with that. So I also want to thank you.
Just in walking around day to day, I've just been impressed by how many new enclosures I've seen, especially in commercial and Vale housing.
Yeah, and I also think back to the risk that our own employees took during the 2 fires.
Oh, yeah.
We should never have, we don't want them ever in that position again. And so dealing with it at the level of issue that it really is, I think we did what we needed to do. I'm very appreciative.
And don't forget, there was the couple of gas leaks caused by snow where we had employees having to dig down and firefighters
themselves
on
at
standby
risk.
so they
Yeah,
can make sure and
it's
get
very
them out of that.
unpleasant.
Yeah,
hole they
so
dug
there's
in.
the
So it wasn't
fires.
an explosion, but it was a near explosion.
So
So we
the-
have
they-
2 hands up.
The explosions we prevented.
Yeah.
Okay,
On
comments
floor-
from the
on floor
audience?
was the first one.
Okay, on floor?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that I really think the time that was given to people for this was inadequate, especially in our location and in a construction time where finding anybody to come out here, especially to do that kind of work, was very, very difficult for people. And honestly, I'm disappointed that sending notices out in June seemed like sufficient time for the board to have this stuff done in October, especially with 6-8 weeks of evacuation in between. In construction projects, you usually need to start trying to find a contractor in the spring, and nowadays it's more like now. And so honestly, I think that was not nearly enough time for your customers, and I think is part of the reason why this has been so negatively received by the community. I also think that so that in the future, if you're asking people to do construction projects, that thinking about the timing of these things and about the access to contractors, which I have heard Eric multiple times talk about not being able to get contractors to come do things for the PUD. So I just think it's really irresponsible to ask homeowners to find people to come and do that work for them on such short notice, and then threaten to, and then turn off their propane if they're unable to comply. And those waivers, I can understand why people are not thrilled about signing them, because they are more than just their property. They implicate more than that, and I think that's a really big ask. So that is my input on that.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Is there another hand?
Frank.
Frank, please unmute.
Yeah, Brandy, if there's a chance, I've looked on the Truckee website and they gave some pictures. Is there a chance we can have some photos that, you know, of examples? Because I find that would be very helpful. And also,
We can definitely do that, Frank.
Yeah.
Some successful ones that have been built. Yeah, we have, you know, we have 2 demonstration ones, Frank, at the district. You're always welcome to come look at. We built them a couple of years ago.
okay, and then Brandy, you also mentioned you're going to have a new standard for those that are underneath decking. Has that been published yet?
We will, I still have a list of people to get back to on, they'd like to enclose under their deck. But since construction is going to be next year, I just haven't gotten to that yet, but it will be coming out, and I know you're on the list, Frank.
Okay, so we just don't have that yet. All right, and then, because if it depends on how complicated it is, whether I'm gonna have to get a contractor or be able to do it myself. But all right, that would be very helpful if we have some examples and the under deck type. Thank you.
Okay, this is just a status update, so we'll wrap this one up. And now moving on to item O, Resolution 2114, pass through our grant to Alpine County.
Yes, so we've been dealing with OGALS for quite a while. We had a temporary advisory committee that came with some project recommendations. One of those although we had local support from Vail, the corporate attorneys just couldn't seem to do anything to help us out on that. So that project went away, which is the bridge connecting the east and west sides. We also had the movie projector. The state said that that was not a permanent installation. We offered to build a permanent, what do you call it, projector house and mount the, under the eaves, mount a permanent screen to the powerhouse as a way to facilitate it so people could watch it from, middle Bay of Pigs parking lot. That was still not a permanent solution to the state. So they rejected that project, which left us with just the park improvement project, which is about $35,000, of which we have to come up with $8,700. So in order to, the state doesn't want the money unused. And they included a provision in the very beginning to offer it to any other eligible agencies within the same county, which opened it up to a few options for us, which would be Amador County Recreation and Alpine County, based on the devastation of Turtle Rock Park and Tamarack Fire. It's staff's recommendation, and I have talked with both Terry Woodrow, Supervisor Woodrow, a few emails with the CAO, Nicole, and JT, I believe is his name. And they would be able to use this for the Turtle Rock repairs. And so it's staff's recommendation that the board adopt the resolution attached, transferring the money to Alpine County.
Okay, and John, finance has reviewed this.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's good to do something for the county. It's a shame we couldn't get one of those other projects approved, obviously.
Okay, board comments?
Just, oh, go ahead, Prashant.
Go ahead. Doug.
Doug,
Okay,
why don't you go first?
Sure, sorry, and sorry, just so making sure I understand, I understand that the projects were, this is me being more new to this concept, so I apologize, but is there nothing else that we could use this for in a different project or propose, or is it because that they were rejected, we have money that is now left to spend, or is there anything that we could do with it? Not that I don't support having Alpine Turtle Rock rebuilt, but I just wanted to know if there was anything else that we could explore on our side before we give a balance over.
At this point, no, because we have to close out our grant application by the end of this year. The transfer gives Alpine County more time, but we have to close it out by December 31st. This is about a 2-year process, Peter, with the temporary advisory committee. Right. Then it went to operations, then it went to the board. So there was a committee that came up with all the projects that they wanted. Could there have been more projects that come up with? Sure. But that was, I mean,
we went through an extensive list and narrowed them down, and these were the only ones that were really practical.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate. The most popular one was to try to connect the east and the west side and with the bridge, but unfortunately that didn't appeal to Vail.
Yeah, so Doug, it was exhaustively researched.
Yeah,
So
we worked with the KCA because they had some of the projects would have been in conjunction with their land, and basically most of it was eliminated, unfortunately.
Okay, Bertrand, I think, did you also have a comment?
Yes. Could you first tell what's going to be funded? Because that's not in your report.
Refunded or funded?
Funded.
What would Alpine County do?
So I'd refer you back to the previous staff report, which included the detailed project components, which are picnic tables, cornhole game.
I think the question is what will Alpine County do with the funds?
I don't know.
No. That's not my
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry.
My question was, I think it'd be nice in your staff memo to have actually mention what's funded, what's not. So that would have been useful. And then I'm a bit disappointed, I would say, that with a grant to improve recreation into our valley, we are not able to come up with much, and certainly only a fraction of what we could have done. So that is very disappointing.
It is, but it wasn't from lack of effort, and a lot of it required Vail's approval. They
And
weren't
a
willing to
lot
do
of
it.
the projects involved liability insurance that, the district didn't want to take on liability. The KCA didn't want to take on liability, and Vail didn't want to take
I
on
mean,
liability.
it may be disappointing, but I think Peter tried everything he could.
And quite frankly, the whole board had this before them and had a stab and could have made suggestions, and I don't recall hearing any beyond what the committee recommended.
Yeah, and we built the playground. That was the major project.
I wish we had
that
done the
was
playground a little bit later, then we could have used this.
We
for
could have
that.
used the
Right.
funds, but as it is, we have a generous
C'est la vie.
community. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, anything else from board members?
So yeah, related to the playground things, I know there is a project of trying to have a storage place for the playground stuff. And I just wonder if that could have been funded by this grant.
No, it could not have, would not have been eligible.
Okay.
Okay, so is there any comments from the audience? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to redirect the grant to Alpine County?
Yeah, Dornbrook so moved to pass resolution 21-14.
Okay, a second? I'll second it. Okay, roll call.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Perot,
Aye.
Hidratanda,
Aye.
Dornbrook, aye.
Okay, we got them all?
Yeah.
All right. Item P, an update on Firewise. Just as an opening comment, I think that, first of all, I want to thank the committee. It's all volunteers for getting us this far, and they've done a lot of work. I'm really pleased what's happened. So this is an update on where we currently are and what needs to come next, but also for your information in this handout is the information that was passed on to the community and presented at the fire safety seminar. So who's going to lead this? I'll turn
Well,
the floor over.
so actually, let me introduce that.
Okay.
The Firewise community, this is going to be an update, and things move. So actually, it's very impressive to see all the progress that are made, including some this morning at the TRITAC meeting. So the first thing is we are going to have a presentation to explain and what is Firewise. I know most people know that from now, but not everybody, and it's important to have it in the record. And number two, and reference for people later to find as well. And number two is how the KMPUD can help that process. And then I would, after the presentation, I would offer the planning committee comments on this project. So I think Anne-Fleur is going to present that. Anne-Fleur?
Hi, everybody. So we presented the Firewise program to the last planning committee meeting and at the fire safety seminar. This is start with an abbreviated version of kind of some just quick background for everybody to make sure we're all on the same page. If we could go to the next slide. So I guess as we've all been coming out of the Caldor fire and thinking about the safety of our valley during future wildfire seasons, we as a community have come together to develop this Firewise community and start working towards improving the safety in the valley. And I think one of the examples that came out of the Caldor fire was all of the work that was done in Christmas Valley and how big of an impact it had on saving structures and slowing the fire down in those areas. So I think the goals are to take the examples from our neighbors and see how we can apply them here locally. The Firewise program is a program sponsored by the NFPA, and it's a resident volunteer organization, really with the goals of educating residents helping the community create plans on implementing defensible space and emergency notification and responses in their community. Next slide. So the benefits of being a recognized FireWise community include improved fire safety and awareness. They can help secure and possibly reduce homeowner insurance premiums. They can enable us to apply for grant money to help fund defensible space projects. And especially here in Kirkwood, where we have so many diverse groups, HOAs, and agencies, really taking this as an opportunity to all come together for the common good and safety of our valley that we all love. FireWise is broadly adopted, including 463 sites in California, 18 sites in El Dorado County, and 4 sites in Amador County. So it's something that is quite common in a lot of the wildfire areas in our region. Next slide, please. And we have lots of support to date for our FireWise community. We have 13 HOAs, and I think that may have increased as of today. And Vail Resorts has also agreed to join our FireWise community. And then Amador Fire Safe Council, Alpine Fire Safe Council, we've been working with the TriTAC committee as well, and have been received support really kind of all around as we're moving this process forward. Next slide, please. So we're putting together an application. Right now, we're working on completing assessments of the existing valley, kind of the state of defensible space and structures in our existing valley, so that we can work on developing action goals to move forward and work on. And we'll be working with hopefully the PUD and CAL FIRE and the Forest Service and putting those action plans together. We're hoping to get our application in here at the beginning of the year, the new year, so that we can be certified and start applying for grants and start projects come snow melts. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to move through this quickly. And then every year we'll submit an updated summary of the work we've done, the defensible space hours people have worked or the community has worked as a whole to get the recognition for the Fire Safe Council for our community. And that's really once we have our application in order to continue being recognized on a year-to-year basis, we submit 1 volunteer hour per dwelling unit, or the equivalent in cost, which is about $28 and some cents per hour, in projects for the whole community working together to receive that certification on a yearly basis. Next slide, please. There are no fees associated with becoming a recognized community, and there are no penalties or fines. This is really just a way for communities to organize and help educate their neighbors, help get funds to work on these projects, and try and achieve some goals to make our community safer in the event of a wildfire. If we don't meet those goals, really the only downside is that we're not meeting those goals. Our community isn't as safe. And if we don't have the amount of volunteer hours each year, then we would not be recognized for that year. So those are really the only downsides to trying this and not succeeding. Next slide, please. We're hoping to submit our application early 2020 and hit the ground running as soon as the snow's melting. Next slide, please. So we have 3 asks for the KMPUD. The first is to support emergency planning efforts. This is really a key piece of the FireWise community, and reviewing emergency plan protocols with the agencies, and then seeing if there's ways that we can improve those, if we can improve notification systems. I know one of the things that was difficult during the Caldor fire is that notifications were coming from all kinds of different counties and places, and there was different notifications and evacuation orders for different parts of the valley, and seeing if we can work with those different agencies to compile that into a more cohesive emergency planning and notification, as well as evacuation requirements for the valley. And then they encourage us to plan emergency notification drills for the community. So maybe once every few years, have a drill day, maybe even once a year if we feel like that's helpful. Have an emergency drill day where we test these systems and work out any of the kinks that may be, to make sure that in the event of an emergency that things are working properly. And I really feel like this is a place where the KMPUD support is critical, because most of that communication currently and planning currently is going through the PUD, or at least in coordination with the PUD and the different county agencies that are involved in this. Next slide. Defensible space operations. So a big part of this program is going to be creating defensible space throughout the community. And I think the PUD is a perfect player to help support this in providing green waste dumpsters and coordinating chipping programs for green waste. And so we hope that we can work with the PUD on providing supportive services for those, whether it's individual homeowners cleaning up their lots or cleanup days that we have for community areas, where we can have a place to process the waste, green waste that's coming off of our properties and the general community properties. And we do expect to have some grant money coming in to help with defensible space projects. And so we can, as we move forward with this, find ways of potentially helping to financially support some of these efforts. And not just rely solely on the budget that you guys are working on providing those for the general public. Next slide. And then the last is to have the KMPUD properties and buildings be included as part of our FireWise community. The more facilities and properties that are part of our community, the safer we can work towards being. And especially since the KMPUD's properties, many of them are critical infrastructure, they are really probably top priority in making sure that they have proper defensible space. Because without those facilities, if we lose them during a fire, it's going to take much longer for us to repopulate the valley in the event of loss of those facilities. And so I think that having those as part of our FireWise community would be beneficial for the whole community, and allow us potentially to have work parties to help with some of the defensible space around those critical infrastructure components. And also the PUD could also benefit from some of the defensible space grants that we hope to be getting for the defensible space on those properties as part of the program. So I think it would be a benefit to the PUD as well. Next slide. Is there a next slide?
You have run out of slides.
I was like, I think this is the last one.
But you were,
The last one.
Yeah.
let me just say you were very efficient.
I know it's you had a lot of things on your agenda today, so I didn't want to be too wordy.
No, you're very succinct. Appreciate it.
But yeah, so that's where we're at, and those are where we are hoping to be able to work with you, and would love to hear any comments or questions.
We talked about this at the last operations meeting, and we kind of came to the conclusion that Eric might want to reassess some of his goals for the upcoming year and elevate the Firewise coordination as a goal. And we were looking at getting some data on what chipping actually costs, what our options are with rentals, and the green waste dumpster program. I just offhand, I think that's probably the most economical and the most effective way to reduce the fire danger. So going forward, we're going to be looking into that. It was a lot more successful than I anticipated.
And the other thing you brought up, which I think Rick and I both concurred with, was at operations that you brought up, was maybe we could put the bins around the community.
Yeah,
If we could
definitely.
get permission from the HOAs
Definitely.
to put one in Juniper Ridge and put one in KMA and so on and so forth. That was a discussion point too.
Definitely.
I guess the bears don't eat the green waste,
Right.
at least this green waste.
Not
Yeah,
this big.
no, they don't.
I just hope that people can get their green waste in the dumpsters and the dumpsters don't look bad in the neighborhoods. Because around my house, the insurance companies came by and cut down a lot of wood. It's all just lying there.
Right.
Yeah, there's little trees cut
Well,
down. And in fact, I'm a little worried about snow removal as far as a lot of them roll down onto the street and things like that too.
Well, that's why the fire season is so much longer now than it used to be, that we want to implement it as soon as the snow melts if possible, rather than going through the long fiscal year process.
Yeah, we could, I think what we had talked about on that, and then maybe that was at the end of the meeting, Peter, but we had talked about was, let's just do the green waste bins again while we go through the process, just to provide them. So
Oh,
there's no
definitely.
interruption, and then go through the 218 process potentially to augment the square foot assessment to fund the chipping as per Rick's report that he gave 4 months ago, Rick, something like that. He's muted. But that was just so there was no interruption, that they were available. And if an HOA didn't want a green waste bin in their property, we obviously wouldn't put it without their permission. But just for this year, while we reassess and hopefully hire out a chipping firm to come in annually and just assess people based on that. And I think Rick's number on that estimate was about 60,000. So spread across on a per square foot basis, it's pennies on the square foot.
The problem with one drawback to chipping in the past is that people have cut piles and then they sit on the roadside for most of the summer, and that's a fire hazard in itself. So
I think
that's why the green waste.
A lot of good advertising, telling people,
right,
when we're going to do the chipping. Here's the week we're bringing the chipping company in. This is when we're doing it. So everybody's ready for it.
Oh, I applaud the Firewise members and all the work they've done. And I was very encouraged by TriTAC's support today at the TriTAC meeting. And I think more public education and of course with the Caldor fire fresh in everybody's mind. I think just this community in general really wants to make an effort to do as much as they can to help protect us in the future.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Ann Fuller and everyone for the time and effort to do this. This is super important. So thank you so much.
Okay, so going back to the 3 asks, I just want to know where we stand on them. So the first one is in terms of emergency planning. Rick, I assume that's something we already do or could incorporate, or what's the thoughts?
So I think when we did the voluntary, when people were allowed to voluntarily sign up for the emergency notifications, which we've had in place before I got here.
Right.
We had done that long before I got here.
Yeah.
People have already opted into a system that we could use without violating any customer privacy stuff. There's
Right.
already an opt-in system.
Right.
And so, and I know we sent out the messages, Chief Ansel prepared a report, or prepared a, message as there were updates. Sometimes when there weren't updates, we still
Right.
prepared one just because of the anxiousness. And that emergency notification system is what we used.
Right.
So I think we already have that in place and we already did it. So that's an easy lift.
Yeah, so here, the commitment is that if we can improve it, we will, but we'll keep that responsibility
Yeah.
and keep it
basically,
going and encourage people to, I think one of the things is to encourage people to sign up.
And we can also be the liaison for the counties, because technically the county is the ones responsible for the emergency notifications and the mapping and so forth. And so we can certainly tie in with both counties, Amador and Alpine, essentially, to coordinate activities and emergency drills, either valley-wide or community-wide, if you want to do the west side or the east side. But again, that's something we're already doing now, but we'd certainly would participate in the future.
Yeah, okay. And on defensible spaces, at a minimum, we'll make sure there's green waste containers this summer, make sure people know where to get them while evaluating what a chipping program could or could not look like. So that's the plan for that one. And then the third, in terms of KMPUD joining Firewise. It seems like
the great irony of this is when I first got here, I realized how many trees had grown over our infrastructure and were damaging it, especially sewer pipelines.
Right.
And when I proposed that we start clearing our easements, you would have thought I had grown a third eye and suggested sacrificing children, to.
Oh, that's right. I
to
remember
Beelzebub. So it's ironic how things have come 180 degrees
yeah.
from that, and some of the very people that were very opposed to it are now really on board, which I'm glad to see they came around to my way of thinking after all.
Okay, so this is something we would.
Yeah,
we would
I mean,
do.
we do our hazard trees every year anyway, so we're already spending, and that's the one question I did have for on floor, and I want to unmute her just in case she knows the answer. I know I saw your per hour per dwelling unit. What was what is it for commercial? Like what's Vale's, or in our case, what would I have to do per square foot on the CSB, for example?
Yeah, so because this is really geared towards residents, it only counts residential dwelling units. So you would only be really on the hook per se for your residential dwelling units in the amount of time that you're putting into this. And that we do the report back on. However, that doesn't mean that we can't incorporate commercial interstitial commercial areas that are adjoining and impacting our residential areas and work together to make those areas safer. So I think for the PUD especially, it's a very, very low amount of time and potentially an ability to tap into community volunteer time or grant time money, or just in general, having more support in creating that defensible space on the commercial and residential portions of the property you manage and own.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's an easy lift. I mean, that's ostensibly 12 hours for 12 units.
We can
have.
overachieve that.
Yeah, and then if each board member contributed 2 hours, I only have to find 2 more. But we already do more than that anyway.
Yeah,
So we
I'd love
would
to do it.
satisfy the goals for them, and they would, we would not
Okay.
be a hindrance in them achieving that.
Great. So in answer to your 3 requests, they're all things, they're directionally what we want to
As
do.
they are couched here, they are all low lifts, easily achievable, and I'd recommend we do them.
Okay, Beth, did you want to provide some additional comments?
Is that who BAMCA is?
If you do, raise your hand and then we'll figure out who.
Oh,
you are.
okay, great. Yes, it's me, Beth McAllister. And thank you so much for your positive response. I just wanted to bring up one comment, talking to some of my neighbors that don't have like a truck. If we, as a minimum, can only do the greenway spins, maybe we have like a cleanup week where we get some support to be able to haul the material to the bins. I think that's an issue for some people as well. There was some dissatisfaction with that.
Yeah,
We could incorporate the loader with a bucket, for half a day or something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that would go a long way to satisfying people.
You have people to just toss it in the bucket, and we'd have volunteers to do that. when the district would provide a driver.
So again, we're talking about things that probably should be fleshed out in operations or planning.
Yeah.
Right,
Because it's
right. It's just a
liabilities.
suggestion.
and
Yeah, the
financial
request
costs.
is there some way to help with the collection?
And that would offset our hours too. I mean, we do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Thanks for that suggestion, Beth. Anything else you want to bring to our attention?
No, this is great. And there are actually 14 HOAs. Just wanted to update that. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so you're almost done?
And
Almost.
if KMPUD join, which will be the next discussion here, then we can say 15 with Lavarock. But the planning committee reviews that and do recommend unanimously for the PUD to actually work with Firewise and be part of Firewise. There is no downside, and like many of the things that the PUD is already doing actually fit absolutely part of that, and that would help the Firewise community to go through its process, and it would, and potentially, if we can get grants, the PUD could benefit of some of this grant as well.
Yeah.
So that is a recommendation from planning committee to actually to be part of that process, a similar way that VEL is and HOAs are.
Okay, so do you want to propose a resolution that KMPD join Firewise?
I can
Or
do that.
how should we proceed on this?
Yeah, as a motion that
Okay.
KMPD participate.
Well,
Bertrand, why don't you?
Is there other questions before I do that?
Yeah, you're good eye. There was one more, Frank.
Go ahead, Frank, you're unmuted.
Thank you. I just want to be clear. Somebody is picking up the ball for getting a chipper or green waste or pickup at green waste, because we had that in the finance committee. So are we going to take it out of the finance committee and there is a group that's going to be responsible for this?
The first step is we'll make sure there's green waste bins available when the snow melts. There's a second question over the best way to fund additional work, and that may flow back to finance.
I think that's right. I think what we'll do is we'll propose budgeting green waste bins. I mean, I'll look to Rick here, but I would say if we double what we did last year, we'll be more than covered. And that was a pretty low cost. I mean, were they about 15 to 1,500 to 2,000 per, Rick? Is that what it ended up being? I know some are heavier.
Well, it was like 15, but yeah, no, it was less than we thought it would have been.
Yeah, so if we did 8, we're at $12,000, which is a pretty, like I said, pretty low lift for the district. We did about 6,000 last year.
Okay.
Do those while we sort out is that the permanent solution? Or do we sort out a different solution?
Yeah, so yes, Frank, there's a default plan.
Yeah, I'm also concerned about what was just mentioned, getting the refuse to the green waste bin is very expensive or very difficult for many people. So that I think is part of the number one problem. It was easy when we just had the chipper, we just put it at the curb. This becomes more involved. And that is, I think, probably the most expensive part right now is getting it from your yard to the green waste bin.
Yeah, and that's what Peter was just discussing, some ideas that we'll explore to figure that out.
So
I was really surprised at how many people spread tarps in the back of their passenger cars and hauled it, because I had the same concern when we came up with the concept. But I think if we coordinate with the different HOAs and they come up with some volunteers to help load the green waste into a loader, which is a very quick way to transfer it, I think that's a good compromise.
If we had an army of volunteers to do that, that would be a really easy.
Yeah.
way.
And we
And
provide the loader and an operator.
Yeah, that could turn into a community activity. That'd be kind of
definitely.
fun.
You know, on the 4th of July weekend.
Yeah.
And that would be counted as credit for Firewise accreditation.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's
Right,
your hours
that's
right
all
there.
good.
Yeah.
Okay, Frank, thanks
Also
for that.
have a Homeowners Association could contract with some of the property management companies to do it as well if necessary, but it's
Yeah, maybe.
a difficult task.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that comment. Any other
Sandy.
comment? Sandy?
Oh, hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, we
Hi.
can.
I'm very excited about your positive response. Thank you for undertaking this discussion and for agreeing with everything we're asking for. A couple of things on communications. I think I'm just going to make a mental note and just say it out loud that I think we should add it to our discussion, our meeting next week, to let the community know somehow through our newsletters or what have you, that they need to sign up for the emergency notification yet again, just as a reminder, and maybe let them know for these reasons, this is really important for your safety, and that, you know, KMPUD is taking the lead on, and will be, and has been taking the lead on communicating any emergency evacuations or notifications. And if you want to receive them, this is how. So that's just one comment. And then another comment I have on the chipping. Jessica Morris, in the talk that she gave as part of the seminar a couple of weeks ago, she talked about a chipping program that was funded, I believe, by the state, and it was in Alpine County. And, you know, based on we all spend a lot of property taxes. We just wrote ours today for Alpine County, and you just voted to give them $150,000 for their parks. I'm just wondering if there isn't anything in Alpine County that maybe we could tap into that could help us with, you know, a week of chipping or 2 weeks over the summer. So those are my two comments, but bottom line, thank you for your support. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sandy.
Terry Woodrow has her hand up.
Oh, fantastic. Terry, welcome.
Yeah, well, I've been here listening. So yes, Alpine County does get money from Secure Rural Schools dollars, and we do chipping with that, and that just got refunded again. It wasn't funded last year, but we just, with this new reauthorization, our funds, it just got reauthorized for 3 more years. And we have offered those dollars to Kirkwood before for chipping, and back when we were first getting these chipping dollars. And you chose to buy a chipper. And so we didn't do that anymore with Kirkwood. So we certainly could extend that, you know, request from Kirkwood when those requests come in.
Oh, thanks for reminding us.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful.
Appreciate that. Are there
Okay.
any other hands up?
Yes, on the floor.
Okay, on floor, back to you.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, in the TriTAC meeting today, it was also mentioned that the Amador Resource Conservation District also has a mobile chipping program. So I think that as we investigate this, it would be worth talking to both Alpine County and the Amador County Resource Conservation District to see what options might be out there that might already be available and for the community to work
Great.
with.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for that reminder. I didn't know. Okay, Bertrand, back to you.
Yes.
Make a resolution.
So I'm making a resolution, a motion, actually, you said, that the KMPUD join the Firewise community process. And do I need to add anything, Anfor? Or anyone else? Is that good enough, or do you?
Yeah.
So, yep. So the motion is for the KMPD to join the Firewise community effort.
Okay.
And be part of the process, like every other entity. Most of, I mean, not all, but most entities of the community now.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Peter second. Oh, there's a tie for second.
Second, you can say.
Okay, Johnson third. Okay, so Peter seconded for the record.
Okay.
All right, roll call, please.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Perot.
Aye.
Mittertanda.
Aye.
Norbert, aye.
Okay, and Bertrand, thank you as the board member for bird dogging this from start to as far as we've gotten. And thank you to all the committee. It's gonna make a big difference.
Yeah,
And,
it's been
and,
impressive to see the progress actually. So it's very encouraging.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
again, thank you to all the volunteers. They really have done a lot of work. So thank you.
Okay, Peter?
I
you
would
have a comment?
suggest the district remind people of that Jessica Morris's presentation is available to view.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
working
you
on a
did?
reminder
Oh,
that
okay.
that we'll send out.
Sounds
I
really-
thought it'd go out today, but probably be Monday.
I was amazed at how she's developed over.
Yeah, isn't
years.
she? And she,
It's
yeah,
incredible.
yeah. So yeah, Monday we'll send out a reminder with that notice on it. Yeah, okay, good. So let's move on to item Q, an update on the wastewater treatment plant funding. Eric.
So the regional USDA has received their allocation from the feds. A lot has changed since our original application. We've paid off some debt, which apparently is not the wisest thing to do when you're applying for grant or a loan from USDA. So USDA staff has been working with us, asking a lot of questions, asking us to revise a lot of things to recognize, for example, Caldor fire repairs. Did you have that in your capital budget that you gave us? No, I didn't. You should include that. I did an updated one for them to capture a lot of things that we've been talking about. So she's reviewing what I've sent her now, and fingers crossed we'll be having a special board meeting later this month to approve the resolution to accept the loan and the conditions from USDA, as well as the short-term financing.
Okay, and John, do you have anything from finance you want to add?
No, it's just, we think CoBank is still committed. And I think that's still the fact, but, and Stiefel stays engaged on this. So hopefully we'll get through the USDA process quickly.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to the general manager's report.
I need to go prepare for the party.
All right, anything else you want to cover?
Report over.
Okay. Operations report. Rick, is there anything you want to cover?
No, I think it's been covered in this this meeting, but I do want to report out that we have received $200,000 in donations to the fire department after the Caldor fire. So thank you to the community for that. It's amazing.
Great.
That is.
Absolutely.
And a report.
Okay, let's see if there's any updates from the standing committee. Start with finance.
Really no further updates.
Okay, operations.
We already discussed everything that was relevant.
Okay, planning. Anything else you want to cover?
Yes, but planning, we had, the first item we tackled was we had a late contact from Alpine Biomass, whatever, cooperative or something like that, ABC, that had contacted us a long time ago, and we planning committee had looked at it and felt it was not fitting and suitable for our valley. And they contacted us fairly late. I think it's November 1st. So we added them to the planning committee, and they come up with a newer presentation with a little more data, which actually make it slightly better, but I still don't think it fit very well both the community and valley in general, but also the direction that the district wants to go. And one of them is to try to shift away from propane. Propane was used as a backup in the proposal.
Yeah.
And so the conundrum we had at the meeting was that they needed a verbal approval for submitting an application to a grant to do a further analysis on that project. And they needed a quick response on that by November 22nd, and which was indeed a very short timeline for public business, number one. And then after, I think the final actually approval would have in written would have been required in January sometime. So with that conundrum, we basically that what Eric, general manager, has proposed was to do an informal poll of the board member, and I think the way he presented was, I won't say misleading, but lacking some information. In effect, he was mentioning the cost, which is 10 million capital, which obviously is not something we are looking into now with all the debt that we already have. But the fact is the approval was not on the project. It was just on preliminary approval to potentially allow to apply for a grant to do further study. And I think that so that's where we are. So I think the informal poll came back negative, and that's it for now. But and I was hoping to be able to have a better sense from our board to not on that specific project, but on the concept of using at some point biomass in the valley to help reduce our fire situation here. If we can convert all this dead wood that we have around within Kirkwood to energy, that is maybe something that we should look at. And I think personally that it's more suitable for new projects. For example, if we get some development on north of 88, that would be a potential application there. So the retrofit is very expensive, and I don't think it's going to fly.
Okay, well, this isn't an agenda item, so you're just giving a summary, right?
Okay,
that you
so
want to bring it up at some point.
Let me summarize. So basically the situation is, because I was hoping that it was an agenda item so we can discuss, it's basically back to the planning committee this month, and I would ask the planning, I mean, no longer me, but that's on the agenda. And so the idea would be to send it back at a later date to discuss long-term thinking here of how biomass could play a role in Kirkwood and is helping us actually reducing the fire hazard in the valley.
Okay, so we'll wait to hear back from the planning.
So it's going back to the planning now. But
okay,
that's what we had. And so
good.
Number one. Number two, on EV charging, we had a presentation from Howard that actually clarified a bunch of, we're still discussing a lot. I mean, the various projects that we have at planning are actually not immediate term, they are more longer term or medium term. And I know that some people would like to get EV charging solutions sooner, but it's going to be a process, and so that's one. So we are it's still a work in progress, and there will be more coming up at the planning, and at some point that will come in the form of a proposal for the board to look at.
Okay, great.
The second topic was public good charge. As you know, that we have collecting 2.85% on the usage fee for electricity to be able to do a few programs based on energy efficiency, conservation, low income resident, and the last one being a pilot project. So again, we are all still collecting information and not yet ready to come back to the board with tangible, but this is on the agenda again next meeting. And the third meeting was on propane shifting, and so at that at the last meeting we actually recommended that the staff would look into putting together a moratorium in a legal wording to propose to the board. That was a unanimous consent from the last planning committee. And so this time but we have not seen anything on that front anyway at that stage. But so we actually focus on trying to see what could be done to actually incentivize people for shifting through rebates for heat pumps or induction stove and trying to see if people can shift from propane to electricity. So that's basically, that was the last item. And it was
Okay.
again, still a work in progress. And at some point, there will be a formal presentation and document submitted to the board for their review and discussion.
Okay, thanks. Communications didn't meet since the last meeting. So I think we're on to the temporary advisory committee reports, fire fund sourcing. Is there anything to report on that?
This was the new one.
Okay, so this is the suggestion of creating a fire fund sourcing
Right.
temporary committee, which I very much would like to see us do. So we would need 2 board members that want to work on that.
What's the?
Well, the
a little more
proposal,
meat on those bones.
the proposal that Eric Rickard had explored was a fee based on usage, and the easiest way to proxy for that is parking spaces.
Mhm.
So if there was a small fee per parking space, and that money went for fire safety and whatever we define, that would be a way of increasing funding for fire. And the argument is that the residences aren't the only ones who benefit from having a fire department.
Right.
Day visitors do as well, but currently we don't see any money. So if there were a fee, if we explored a fee based on per parking space, it would be reflective of intensity of usage. And so it's to explore that. Eric,
It's not per parking space, it's based on intensity of benefit received, which
Oh.
parking spaces may be a reasonable proxy for.
Yeah.
But it's based on benefit, which is how a 218 has to go. So that's a arguable benefit.
Bob, I'd be willing to take on that effort.
Okay, Doug. Okay.
Then who would pay that?
So it'd be, you go through a 218 process, it'd be a special assessment district that would be be placed across the parcels in our service area based on benefit received.
Okay.
So for example, if you did it, let's just say you did it on square footage instead of parking, or, so a 100 square foot studio would pay 1/10 of what a 1,000 square foot home would pay if you were doing it on square footage. Or if you did it on parking spaces, a studio apartment has 1 parking space, same as a 1 bedroom, so they would pay the same, but a 2 bedroom and have 2 spots in their condo, or so on. That you would have to justify it as a way, you'd have to tie the 2 together to do a benefit receipt.
And then Vail would have a large assessment then.
Yes.
Okay.
So the goal is to create a temporary advisory committee, just explore the merits of this approach and its
And it has to do
feasibility.
with like the chipping too as well. How would we
Yeah.
pay for chipping? This might be another way to pay for chipping. In addition to funding the fire department.
When was the last time we reviewed the fire impact fees?
Before my time.
I mean, I know it's been a long time
Yeah.
since they've been updated. I think that you could put that on the agenda for that committee, see what's appropriate.
Yeah.
Especially now that if there's a sense of real estate and development is picking up a little.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Someone want to join Doug on that? And I'll do it. I'm
That's
happy to
2.
do it.
You can't have more than 2.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is we're looking for a second one.
I thought you and Doug. were
Yeah.
2. Okay, that's 2.
Okay. I hadn't volunteered yet.
Oh, you
Just
hadn't
did.
volunteered. I thought you were volunteering yourself.
I just saying it was a good idea.
Oh.
Okay, so we'll get that started and start to explore. Okay, last item for the closed session, general discussion. So items that board members want to bring to our attention. And Bertrand, I think you had one.
Yes, I do.
Okay. In the interest of time, we'll just itemize them now.
So the first one is just to make sure that we are in page on how to get agenda item on the agenda. So one process is very simple. Is through that general discussion is to bring a topic and basically ask to get that item to be put on the next meeting agenda. If there is no consensus, I guess the proper step is to have a vote to actually decide if that should be an agenda item. So that's my first process. I'm going to stop there and see if that's how it's supposed to be, or what do people think about that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's actually covered in the board handbook that
So-
other board members received of how that happens, but I will brush those off. And
Yeah, so why don't Eric and I review what's in the board handbook and make sure it's communicated? And if we want to make any improvements or changes on it, then we'll agendize that. We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting to explain how it works, and if people want to make changes, then make sure it's clear.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make sure that happens.
Yeah. The second topic is a few board meetings away. The planning, I don't remember how it come, but basically the board asked the finance committee to look at a number of issues that we currently have with the EDU system for new construction, new homeowners, lifestyle change, all these things. And one of the things that was also asked to the finance committee is to actually look at what minimum payment could do in that regard for the base fees. And so at the last board meeting, we had a discussion, and I thought it was clear that this would like to have that as an agenda item for next board meeting. So at the end, literally requested it, but it didn't happen. So I'm going to do it this time. Is I would like to have a discussion on base fees and potential minimum payment as well on all the utilities that the PUD is providing. And the idea is we have revised, in my opinion, it's still not perfect, so we still need to work on it for electricity, but we also need to look at the other utilities, and I would like that to be an agenda item at the next board meeting.
Okay, and anything else?
That's it, but
okay.
I want, so if there is no consensus, I would like to have a vote on that. So basically, last time I thought it was clear and it was not. So this time I want to have a clear assurance that this will be an agenda item at the next board meeting.
I think you could just ask for consensus.
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Right.
you don't have anything on that. Nothing's been proposed. We've not
Yeah,
seen anything from the people.
Is someone going to write a document?
No, but we'll have to be for that meeting, indeed, yes.
Who's going to do that?
I can do that if need be, yeah.
Can I suggest that you do that and it start in a committee?
Say that again?
Can I suggest that you write the concept down and start it in a committee that could then recommend it to the board?
I find interesting that, okay, actually, why don't I see that Howard raised his hand? Maybe you can have him talk, see what he.
This is a board discussion. This is the board general discussion. It's not a community general discussion.
Okay. So, I mean, it seems to be a simple request. So it looks like you are putting roadblock to put agenda items whenever you wish.
You want to discuss something that hasn't even been written down. My request is that it be in writing, so we understand what it is and there's some analysis done, so we have something to discuss.
So that's a new standard to have an agenda item, because that's not been the case forever.
You don't want to start it in a committee?
I'd like to have a discussion at the board that may actually then push it to some specific committee. It sounds reasonable. I don't understand what the blocking. Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine to, I think our committees in general should be doing work that is consistent with what the board wants to do. So if there's a topic that we should discuss, then I'm happy to have a conversation about it at a high level. I do think that Bob is right that I would like to see documentation of what we're talking about before we talk about it. But I think
that would be part of the
that would be very helpful.
Yeah. Mhm.
But that would, I mean, I'm fine having a conversation about it as long as we're not making any, we have to make decisions. We push it to the committee, then come back for a recommendation to the board. That works for me. But I do want, I mean, noting what problem are we trying to solve and what are the proposals and what are we trying to do is all stuff I think would be helpful.
And
to
this
background
this
before we have a
topic is not
discussion.
agendized. Right now, you're just bringing up a general discussion.
Right.
So that's what I'm asking. Let's agendize it so we can discuss it to see if there is merit to look at other utilities.
Okay, my request is I'm willing to consider as agenda item if I know what it was, if somebody would write down what it is.
I can, in one sentence, can tell you that we should revise.
But we can't discuss it now. It's not on the agenda. My request is that there be a document that just describes a proposal, so we have something to look at and think about.
That sounds reasonable and practical. And you want to bring it up at the next meeting, put a concept down so that we can figure out which committee it's appropriate for, and let's get on with this.
If it's not on the agenda, we cannot discuss it.
Well, if you write something down, if you can write something down, we'll get it on the agenda.
You're looking at title it rate adjustment or
okay. So
something like that.
I will write down something so it's put on the, and that's exactly
Okay.
what I'm asking actually. But you're reversing the thing actually. Yes, let's have a discussion at the board level to decide if that's something that committee and which committee should look at.
Okay, I want to do that if there's something in writing that people can read in advance, so we know what the proposal is.
And
The proposal is to discuss.
Customarily, if you want to put something on the agenda prior to a meeting, you have 72 hours prior to the meeting to do that. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, so we have time.
That's where we've always done it.
Yeah.
And it's up to any.
And that's not true, actually. That's why I'm discussing this agenda item. It's true that if Eric wanted to have something on the agenda, he could basically decide that a week before. If Bob now wants to put something in the agenda, so does it. But it looks like you are putting different hurdle to be able just to discuss the idea of exploring something and deciding which committee should look into it.
What I'm saying, and then I want to move on because we're running out of time. If you can document what it is that you want to discuss, so we have something to read, and that's a bit.
It's
then we'll put it.
Base fee for all utilities. That's a concept I would like to be able to discuss.
So if you can write it down in time, then we'll put it on the agenda. Are there other board members with a general discussion they want to add?
I had one thing, and I think it's
go.
somewhat related to what Bertrand's actually talking about in some ways, is that I'm probably the one who's most recently read all of the board policy statements because I read them all as part of my onboarding. And number 130 is the one that talks about agendizing of board items. And from what I can tell, there's a form that you fill out that I think, Bertrand, if you just fill out that form and send it in, it says a week and a half in my quick glance on it and refresh my.
That was never requested. So suddenly we're asking new things here. I mean,
I'm not asking anything. I'm not asking anything. I'm just telling you what I'm reading.
Please let Doug speak, Bertrand.
Bertrand, I'm just saying that I'm just reading it through it. So however it's happened in the past, I have no information on. I'm just saying that this is what I'm reading through. So that's what I've read. I know this because the other thing I wanted to bring up was for policy statement 130 was related to it, and it's because of the general meeting schedule. I was just wondering, in general, if Eric, if staff had any thoughts about the standard meeting time that we have for our board meetings, and that Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. feel like a burden for our staff to work on a week. I guess Brandy technically is working today in a day that she has off, but it seems like in most cases staff are working on an extra day, and it seems like, especially when we are in the emergency status, when we don't have quorum and whatnot, if Fridays at say 2 p.m. would be an applicable time to actually think about having our standing board meetings as a way of maybe helping staff have these meetings inside of their business hours. And, I understand there's the quorum side of it that could cause a problem after the emergency, but I'm just wondering if that's something that we could think about or look at.
Yeah, what I can tell you, Doug, to answer your question is this hybrid meeting requires a lot of staff time to set this up, and it's hourly staff versus salaried. So, Brandy, Rick, Kelly, myself, we're at the mercy of the board. We're salaried. We come in wherever we have to. Problem is when we get into the hourlies that I do need to run this whole setup, that starts getting into overtime and things like that on the weekends. I will say that there are more employees with young children that want to go to their kids' sports on the weekend. And I'm sure there's grandparents that want to go see a kid's soccer game or a basketball game. That this makes us very inconvenient. From a staff perspective, we'd much rather have it during business hours, as most other public entities do.
So why don't we take your item and people can think about it another time, and we'll discuss that at the next board meeting.
I will happily fill out a form making that official if we need it as an agenda item and do that. If
Okay.
Just let me know if that's what we need to do.
Oh, that's a good topic.
All right, that's all right. Thank you. All
I'll
right.
fill out a form and send it in.
Okay, good. We have a closed session now.
We do.
Okay. So do you want to explain how that works?
Yes, so we're going to be going into closed session to discuss conference with real property negotiators as per government code 54-956.8. We will reconvene. So this is different than the old Zoom that I was used to. So I imagine we'll talk for about 5 minutes. So all attendees will need to leave. If you want to come back in 5 minutes, we'll probably be reconvening on the topic and report anything out if there is anything. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In the old Zoom way, I could put them in the waiting room, but I don't have the waiting room option on Zoom webinars. So,
okay.
Eric, just to be clear, this is the full board is here to.
Yes. Don't go anywhere, Doug.
Okay. Just want to make sure that this wasn't like a personnel committee thing or something.
I know if people don't remove them, don't leave the meeting. I have to remove you. And if I do that, you can't come back in. So the 6 of you, please remove yourselves. Okay, well, then I'll do it. Why is this one?
Someone extra stubborn.
Wow, it's sticky. This one's Carolyn Scott. Need you to go. I don't know why I don't have any control over it.
And just as a side note, do we continue recording during a closed session?
No, I
No.
will pause that. I'm gonna try this and see if that works.
It still says recording on the thing. Are you sure you paused?
I haven't paused it yet because we haven't gotten into closed session yet, Bertrand. I still have one person to.
That won't leave.
It says 0, but now it says 0, but I still see the name. So my guess is it's just a Zoom thing.
All right. Assume it's a bug and not a
A
listen.
feature.
Okay.
I don't know what to do about that. Okay.
Okay, and I assume if anybody wanted to join back in, they'd be in the waiting room.
Yes.
Okay, so we concluded our, concluded our closed session discussion on real property negotiations, and we're pointing out that we did an overall review of where we are on employee housing and any surplus demand that we had or lack of demand. Well, there was no action taken. Okay, and with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting and see you all, for those of you who can make it, at the party in 2 hours.
Awesome.
Thank you.